Welcome to episode 48 of Summoning Insight. And last time, we've got a repeat guest here, Monte. So last time we had this show was way back in episode 26. Things were very different back then, Monte. It was on Gamers. Remember that? That was like a website that used to exist back then with a lot of League of Legends content and was doing great work, actually. And at the time, we had on Freeze when he was not actually in LCS at the time. He'd had all those issues in the challenger scene where he'd repeatedly tried to qualify with NIP. And people used to jokingly say, you know, like, oh, Freeze is cursed. You know, whoever he goes to somehow fails to get into LCS. Because actually, the joke is it extended beyond the NIP era. Back when he was in the previous team, what was it? Was it the Samurai in Jeans, I think, was the one you were on, Freeze? That one failed to get in, but he actually got picked up by NIP at the time and got into the LCS. So then with NIP, he failed to get in, but then he got picked up now by Copenhagen Wolves. And so people told me about this curse that whenever anyone who's associated with Freeze professionally becomes cursed, and not only does Freeze get destroyed, but they get destroyed utterly as well for putting their faith in Freeze. So like many curses and like many kind of, you know, like many kind of Westerners who think that science and reason will prevail, Monte, and at the beginning of a supernatural movie, we're the fools, you know, because we're the ones like, huh, ghosts, they don't exist. And then as we close the lab door, you know, like the woman comes out the wall and kills us, because obviously that's like our payback for our haughty scientific chauvinism, Monte, is that we're the ones who get killed by the supernatural forces. So much like that, I thought, a curse? There's no such thing as a curse. And that was actually the last episode of Summoning Insight that was ever done for On Gamers. I was actually fired before we could even get to another episode. We went something like a month, our longest period, without a Summoning Insight episode. We had to totally rebrand the whole thing, form a company to actually produce Summoning Insight, have a legal battle over the very name Summoning Insight, finally secure it, start anew, and now finally, Monte, now that we've finally got in a position where, you know, now we've got like proper backing, you know, we're in a world where things are going well for us again, I thought, you know what, much like one of those movies where they never learn from their mistakes, okay, why don't we just play with fire again? Why don't we hold a seance saying that we don't believe in supernatural forces and actually challenge the ghosts to destroy us completely for no reason other than just, you know, haughty, you know, chauvinism for science. So let's prove once and for all that there is no curse whatsoever.
See, you have nothing left to lose, however. You've already lost it all. You've gone down to the darkest depths. So I assume this means that I'm going to be the one fired from OGN.
Maybe.
We will see what happens.
Why? You don't believe in curses, right, Monte?
Of course not.
No, exactly. So there's no problem there. Let the movie begin. Now now on this ancient burial ground that we're having this particular show on, as we invert the cross and begin the show by challenging the devil and saying the Candyman's name 3 times, our guest this week is Freeze, as I built up there. Hi, how are you doing, Freeze?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Finally an LCS, as we mentioned, so doing great there.
But here's what I've realized, Freeze. There's a new chapter to the curse that people didn't know about. Here's the chapter. It turns out, I did a lot of investigation because I was like, how could one man be cursed like this? Like, he's not a guy who's done anything evil in his life. He's actually a reasonably good guy. He's billed as toxic, but usually it's like in a funny way. You know, there's an aspect behind it that explains it. So I did some digging, Freeze. And what I found was that actually this curse, it supernaturally relates from your country, Czech Republic. Like, it's an old folk curse. And what it was it's not actually like you're just cursed. It's that using like syncretic folk magic, you've actually discovered one of the secrets is that to gain power in the material world, the way you get spirits to work with you is you have to give something up in the world. And so what I discovered was I looked at the track record and I found that the story of the curse was incomplete. Because yes, Freeze gets cursed and all the people with Freeze gets cursed and they don't get into LCS. But then I saw a pattern that I didn't realize until after the last episode, which was that you essentially sacrifice all your teammates and lose LCS qualifiers so that you then get picked up by an LCS team. Leave all those guys behind. Those guys are fucked. Leave them. They're dead. They've been sacrificed. But then you get took into NIP, you're in the LCS without qualifying. You get took into Copenhagen Wolves, you're in the LCS without qualifying. It always works out for you, Freeze. I've noticed that. So the curse has actually got a new component to it.
And he does us the favor, hopefully after this season, of removing Youngbuck from the LCS so we don't have to watch him anymore.
Now, Monte, if we're going to talk about curses...
It's altruistic.
If we're going to talk about curses, if there's one thing that can never happen is no one can exorcise the ghost that is Youngbuck from LCS. It's been tried many times, my friend. Many great teams came and challenged that that ancient demon and thought they had the special relics and the tools to beat it. But no matter what they did in the challenger scene, as they fought through the different enemies to become the champion that would represent, Youngbuck always found a way. No matter what he had to do, he found a way. And so I think that's naive to imagine Youngbuck will ever not play at LCS, Monty. So no. And also, Youngbuck's one of the only people who survived the curse and found his way into LCS, even after Freeze did his damnedest to destroy his player completely.
Yeah, he made an anti-curse. He he has his own curse, and he sacrificed something else. I don't know what though. But
his dignity as like a legit player who plays proper meta champions and just plays the right way. Did he sacrifice that? just put it out there. Just put it out there.
You're on
the
fire
thing is,
today.
You can only win in so many areas at once, Freeze. Like, if you're a guy who's really buff, you've worked out, you've built your body up, you're doing very well in the physical world, you have a girlfriend, a hot girlfriend, he's got all these qualities, he's always in LCS, he's always getting a salary playing video games. You can't have it all. You can't also then be like the best player as well. Like, don't be greedy, just accept what you've got and then let that AD carry you into LCS every season. That's the plan. That would be like his approach. And then if that doesn't work, if the AD carry leaves because inevitably he's too good, then you just get a new AD carry, or here's the secret, or you just save up money and then eventually you have enough money to keep the services of that carry AD carry and he doesn't leave. Because that's an interesting thing, Freeze. See, you didn't know how the script went, mate. What happens is you get into LCS playing for Copenhagen Wolves because at the time, nobody knows how good you are, so it happened to Forgiven, happened to you. Then what you do is you play one season in Wolves, and that's like kind of like your audition for a better team. You show the other teams, like, listen, I'm in Copenhagen Wolves, I'm not in a sick team, but I'm doing really well. Look at me, I'm a really good AD carry. And then what happens is at the end of the split, after you lose in the first round of the playoffs, see, so far you're following the script perfectly here. You had it all nailed so far. Then it gets to the point where, because you've done really well, but your team isn't good enough, all the teams come to you with the checkbook, right? And they just say, listen, we need an AD carry. Like SK Gaming's like, we need an AD carry. Fnatic's like, we need an AD carry. All these top teams just need a really good AD carry. So they're like, Freeze, just come and join us, mate. Here's all the money in the world. But for some reason at that point, you didn't fulfill the last step, which is where you actually leave and go and join the better team. So why didn't you do the last step?
Well, there were several reasons to begin with. So first of all, like my management told me that SK reached out for me, and well, I will say everything they told me. The first they told me was that they want to trade me for Forgiven, which for the management was like undoable, since most of the players didn't have a good relationship with Forgiven for some reason from the last split. So then I reached out back to them. I wanted to know what do they offer to me, what salary, what contract, what do they what other changes are they going to be in the SK Gaming, and I have waited for it for almost a week, and I didn't get anything, any information at all.
Disrespectful.
Yeah, they disrespect me. But yeah, I don't know if it was that CW didn't tell me, but I think they have to tell me, right? Because of the rules.
Don't ask me, mate. I don't know how the rules work.
Yeah.
As far as I know, all CW has to do is provide you with a crust of bread, some water, and then paint the bars like a nice colour that fit in with the wall, so it looks like there aren't any bars there. Like that's sort of a metaphor for LCS contracts I'm doing there, that you see, Freeze. But anyway, continue. What do CW have to do?
I reached out again to SK Gaming. What do they really offer to me? And they kept prolonging. They didn't tell me anything. And then I had the feeling like those players didn't really want me, because there's the funny, like you talked about it before. There's the funny story in the preseason before I was actually picked up by CW, when I was reaching out to every team, trying to get the tryouts for every team. I reached out to SK. Even Team Liquid reached out back then. Team Curse reached out for me, and well, I reached out to SK, and I was about to get the trial for them, and then for some reason they didn't try me out at all. And the reason I got was that one or more the players don't think I'm good enough, and the other reason was that they don't think I have a good personality. So with this, knowing that they didn't even give me a tryout, didn't even play scrim with me. Then with knowing this, and then 3 or 4 months later, funnily enough, the same team, exactly the same team, who took Forgiven, by the way, who wasn't considered as a nice summoner, you know, reach out for me again, and they say that they want me this time, which for me sounds like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
so essentially, the gist of this story that you're describing now, Freeze, beyond the contract terms and them not getting back to you, is that now that SK, you know, finished 4th, and then they lost by far their best player, and now they're in a position where, hey, maybe they're not even going to do well. In light of history, the way they treated you, you're sort of like, how you like me now, bitch? Yeah, I'm not joining you. Fuck you, I'm on CW. How you like my personality now? Real nice, eh? Yeah, okay. So that's basically the gist of the story, right? You're like, hey, oh, not good enough for a tryout. Maybe I won't try out your team now. Yeah, some shit like that, yeah.
That's right. But see, the best way to do it is to continue to stay on the worst team. Even if SK would have been better than Copenhagen Wolves with Freeze on it, he's like, nope, I'm just going to drag everybody down into the dumpster with me by not joining your team. What kind of logic is that? You're really that
come on, Freeze, come on.
No. There was more to it. The other reason was I didn't really know if I only wanted to join a new team if the team would make Worlds. That was my ultimate goal, you know.
And so you decided instead, I'll say, on Copenhagen Wolves, where my chances are better to make Worlds. Right, Freeze? Right? Yeah?
No, okay. So,
I thought so. Yeah, it checks out. It checks out, okay.
SK at least had 4th place circuit points. And if you joined them, I mean, they looking like a okay team this season, even with Candy Panda. Who else would have been likely to contest for SK spot? You really think Unicorns of Love are going to be like top 4 again this season?
I doubt it, because they only went with the success they had because of the meta. The meta shifted like right before playoffs, and they have really good solo laners, and they played double tank first out of every team. That's why they won so many games in playoffs and almost even beat Fnatic. You know, like they were second and lost by 1 game. So that was because of the meta. So
Fnatic also tried their hardest to beat themselves during the playoffs. To be perfectly honest, over the course of their playoff run, it was mostly the games I was watching was mostly like Fnatic's will to win versus their own crap strategies. So they definitely pulled it together at MSI.
Well, if you play animals, you have to play like animals, so you beat them, you know. that was the saying back then when people were watching the playoffs. But yeah, that was because of the meta shift that they had the success. So I don't think they will have the same success unless something like that happens again, which is not very likely, you know. That won't happen. I know, like, really likes those changes before playoffs, you know, like you play whole split with the same meta, and then Real says, oh wow, what about changing this and this? Changing the game completely, you know, it's playoffs time, let's make it fun.
By the way, guys, just as a to help everyone out for the rest of this episode, I'm going to be like the Rosetta Stone here. When he says Riot, he means riot. By the way, I know already. You're like, what? Ryu said that? Like, what the fuck does Ryu controls the balance check? Like, this is fucked up. Like, no, he's saying riot now. Okay, just Freeze has a very particular way of pronouncing certain names. Okay.
That's
like if he's talking about the AD carrier of Cloud9, he's like Sneke. Sneke's gonna that's not some new player. That's actually Sneaky from. I'm just gonna help everyone out here, Freeze. I'm gonna be like human subtitles.
Yeah, translator.
So Monte, let me ask you this. It sounds like you're alluding to the fact you think SK with Freeze would have been better for both SK and for Freeze. True?
True.
Why?
Just in terms purely of results. Whether it's better for his personal sanity or not, that's not for me to say. But SK doesn't have a bad team right now. They had a close game this last week against Fnatic that they failed to close. But, I mean, Candy Pit is serviceable, but I think Freeze definitely has a higher upside.
Would it, in terms of what he's saying, though, one aspect I can sort of understand about what he's saying is that it's not like SK, even with Freeze, will be a lock to get Worlds. So if there really was any questionable aspect, like personality, I think maybe, I mean, listen, I don't think Copenhagen Wolves is going to make it either, but okay, it's not like joining SK would be like joining Fnatic, okay?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, we know that Freeze doesn't think that too. I was reading your AMA the other day, and you estimated that you would get 7th in the league, which you may be able to do better than just based off of, I mean, you already took out SK, so there's an argument to be made that you made the right decision in that regard. But I agree with you that the SK, it's not like there's a lock that SK is going to make Worlds. It's not like if you had joined Fnatic, right?
Yeah, well, we lost to Giants as well,
Yeah, that was a quality League of Legends right there.
Yeah. Well, that was exactly my point there. Like, I wasn't sure there are many reasons. Like, if I would join SK, I wasn't sure if we make Worlds. We would have to work for it really hard, and then, I wouldn't even mind if we wouldn't go Worlds, like 100%. The thing I minded the most was the management. Like, I literally waited for a week to get information about whatsoever is happening in the team, if there are different changes, and then I didn't even get offered like a contract or whatever. So for me it looked really shady, and it looked like SK is having me as a second option and having Candy Panda as first option, honestly. So I didn't really want to force myself to, I come to SK and I'm like, okay, guys, I will join you, do this and this. I wanted to be the guy who like gets the paper from SK and says, we offer you this, and you accept or not. And they didn't do it. They just kind of ignored me. So that was my biggest concern of the organization, because it didn't look legit, it didn't look like they care much.
They weren't eager enough about
exactly.
Oh, come and join us. Okay.
They weren't like, you have to join us 100%. They weren't eager.
You're living the dream. See, now you just use this as an audition for the NALCS next season. You just ride out the end of the season, go through the end of your contract, and then that's where those North American dollars start pouring into your bank account.
See, Monte wasn't listening, Freeze, because you specifically mentioned that it was the same scenario with Curse. Remember, when no one wanted you last season before the spring split, you wanted to join Curse. You wanted to try out for a good LCS team, but all those teams didn't give a crap. And I've heard recently, I think it was Forgiven or someone kind of implied that like NA teams that he'd talked to wanted him to go and try out for them and stuff. And so since he thinks he's really good, to him that was kind of an affront, like what the fuck? Like, you don't want me directly? I'm better than the player you have now. So I think the revenge thing's still going there, Monty. He doesn't want to join NA for the same reason. What do you think, Freeze?
He doesn't want to join Curse. There's a difference. He could still, there's plenty of other teams to pick from, right? TSM Freeze next year, the dream.
Yep, played with Bergson, Wink, wink.
Here's the thing though, Freeze. This is an opportunity where we can talk about, beyond just the move, like should Freeze have joined SK, you can talk about general philosophy, because I've got some advice for you in life, my friend, okay? There's this great saying that you've probably heard before. It's an English idiom. It says that the best revenge is just living well. And so the idea is, here's the usual interpretation of that, Freeze. The idea usually is that if someone's like fucked you over in life, what most people interpret that as is you're supposed to just try and have a really good life regardless and not let it get you down. And therefore, when you then are having a great life and you have like a cool girlfriend and a nice job and you're really happy, then the person who fucked you over will see that and they'll sort of be like, like it didn't even help to fuck them over, and I'm kind of the loser because I'm the one who's holding on to anger and stuff. But I interpret it differently, Freeze. As often, I'm in many ways my own kind of pioneering philosopher. And so the way I take that is like the best revenge is living well. Well, the way I would have applied that is actually in a very petty way. I would have joined SK Gaming because they said last time that, they didn't like your personality and maybe you weren't good enough. I'd have joined now when they're like at rock bottom and they have to take you. Then when you join, the whole time I'd be like playing on those exact things that they said. Like I'd be like, hey, after a big game, I'd be like, hey, Svenskeren, buddy, teammate, friend of mine, could you just like run me an orange juice up here because you're such a great teammate and we're getting along so well. And then every time you won a game, I'd look over at them and be like, guys, I feel like my personality's just come on leaps and bounds since I joined this team. Like I've just really grown as a player. Like you really helped me to get this position. Now, could you just like first pick my champion again, please? Just pretty please. I'd play up that angle so hard, like that's the way I'd get my revenge. I'd essentially just ruin their whole lives, but while playing in their team, Maybe I'm a unique person like that.
Yeah, you definitely mean person, Duncan.
That's what I'd do, And then every time N-Rated ever said anything, I'd be like, that's the other thing I'd do here, Freeze. The genius is I'd play off the fact that Forgiven was there before you, and so the contrast between you and Forgiven could be what could work in your favor. Like if you were ever annoyed by anything, the way you could get changes is you could be like us and then rated. I mean, I know the last guy would probably really chewed you out for that game and told you like you're total shit and that he's going to try and replace you. Listen, I don't want to do that. I'm a nice guy. I just want you to play this champion here. Try and play a little bit safer, maybe. You know, like follow my lead. I'm going to kind of lead the lane actually from now, you know. And in many ways, guys, like, listen, I know the last guy probably demanded a lot of the farm, probably demanded a lot of ganks. I don't need all the ganks. I don't need all the farm, Fox. You can have some farm, but I would like some of the farm at this point in the game. You know, I'm just being reasonable here. But then what I've realised in saying that, Freeze, is that I'm actually behind the curve myself, because yeah, you could have done that in SK, but remember, SK didn't necessarily want Forgiven anyway. They just needed him. What I've realised is you're already doing that. You're doing that in Copenhagen Wolves because you're following Forgiven there. So in Copenhagen Wolves, what you do is listen, because they were with Forgiven and they're Copenhagen Wolves, they know they can't win without giving you all your picks anyway. So you're getting all that anyway. You're getting the Draven lock-ins, that's for sure. And then beyond that, every time you lose a game, but you like play a bit selfishly and just hard carry anyway, you're not having to ever worry about them criticising like SK might have, because they look over at you and Youngbuck loses the game and he goes like 0-2 and 4 and he looks over like nervously like, oh, I just lost the game. But then you're just like, listen, it's all good. We're all getting paid. We're all friends. Everyone's friends here, aren't they? And then Youngbuck just breaks down crying like, oh God, it's just what I always wanted in a teammate. I just waited so long. And you're like, it's okay. Come on, give me a hug here. And then you look over at the manager like, I am getting like triple salary this season. Yeah, I love you. Love you, Youngbuck. Love playing with you, mate. It's all good in the hood. Okay. What do you think, Freeze? Have I cracked the code?
Yep, exactly.
See, I'm a very perceptive person, Monty. I look for the little patterns, the subtleties of the game. I know you're like looking at the server trying to figure out what's going on, but I'm more about the human element, Monty. I want to know what makes these guys tick, you know. How does friendship come together to win League of Legends? That's what I care about, Monty. So now I have to ask you the other.
I don't respond to that.
There is no way. But Monty, now I have to ask you another classic Thorin line of questioning. So while Freeze is sat here and he's already definitely committed to Copenhagen Wolves and his contract still remains, there's nothing he can do about it at this point in time. How does Monty actually think Copenhagen Wolves will do this season? What's the range?
I think they're lucky to make playoffs. I think that his AMA is looking good. I mean, this is a team that beats SK and loses to Giants in the same week. I think that's just the essence of the Wolves right now.
Yep.
They probably go like, you know? Yeah.
They didn't know what to do at all. They were like lost completely.
Yeah, I could say the same thing about you and your Giants game.
It's cause Freeze in their team, they're kind of like missing something, you know. It's someone in the bot lane. It could have been like they could have had like the best player in the server that game, but they didn't for some reason. You know, if anything, they weren't eager enough, they weren't polite enough, they weren't at the door waiting with a bouquet of flowers like, baby, I need you, man, take me back. I know I did it wrong, but this time it'll all be different. Like, you know, that's their mistake, right? It was a revenge game, right? It was a revenge win.
Yep, pretty much. But yeah, as you said before, like in Wolves, I kind of feel like safe, you know. Like,
by the way, Wolves is wolves. Just for everything. Okay, continue. Yeah. Keep going.
I will kill you one day. Okay. Okay. And in Wolves, did I say it right this time?
Doesn't matter. Keep going.
Okay, whatever. In Wolves, I kind of feel safe, you know. Like there's, if the only one who criticizes my play is myself. So if
I mean, how can the rest of them like how can Jungbok? How can he criticize your play? You know, he's Jungbok.
Where the fuck is Dentist in all this? Is it his job to criticize your play?
He's off in the corner memeing on his phone. What do you think, Monty? Are you even following this career? Like, what's going on here?
Well, he does criticize more of a team play than individuals. Like for myself,
okay.
Since I'm very motivated to get better, and I have all the meanings to get better, I still haven't reached my cap. I think I have a pretty high skill cap, and if I'm motivated enough, then I can criticize myself all the time and keep getting better. And no one else is like there to mainly if like. No one will flame me, you know. That's what I feel, and I didn't have the same feeling about SK because I didn't know if I join SK, what if everyone will flame me? Oh my God, Freeze, you're not forgiven. You don't have 500 gold per minute. You don't take so much CS and stuff like that. So I didn't really know how it will be in the SK environment. And since they were kind of shady and didn't really offer me anything or didn't really talk to me, then I just decided to stay in CW, see what happens. My contract ends in November, so pretty much after the split, and then I can do whatever. I can again stay with CW, or I can go other team if teams offer me something, pretty much. So I'll just play another split and see how it goes.
Since you're saying like that, like they don't really criticize you, etc. In terms of as an individual player, I know lots of good AD carries where if they're like carry type players, the frustration that comes up, it's obvious with Forgiven because he did it in a really public manner, is the frustration is like, oh, well, then my support has to be super duper good because if I don't have the best support, how can I just carry lane and then win the whole game off that? Obviously, you're not playing with the best support in EU LCS. Is that ever anything you think of yourself? Like, what if I would, like, okay, remember you were talking about Curse before? What if you were paired with Xpecial or something like this? Is it not anything you ever think about, a temptation?
Well, I thought about Fnatic a lot. What if I would be in Fnatic? How it would be? That was like my, a mini dream.
Yeah.
Since Fnatic is full of great players, and I mean they had still.
They've got a few, yeah.
They got a few, and they worked well together. And I mean, honestly, they had Steelback and they almost beat SKT, So with Steelback, and that guy was not.
Just to clarify, their AD carry was Steelback. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
How do you feel about Steelback, Freeze?
Well, he was shit in the split, and then he got better. He got better over time. He was getting better and better.
Were we watching the same MSI?
Not enough. Well, on MSI he did
Monte,
way better than in.
He did get better, but he's proof of that famous other idiom in English. You can't polish a turd. Like you can make a turd look awesome. You can spray fragrance around. You can put a bit of polish on it and stuff, but it'll still look like shit in the end. Yeah.
Well, if you would compare his skill in LCS throughout the split and then in MSI, he was completely different on MSI than in the spring split. Like in the spring split, he was food for me. I honestly I was like.
But in MSI, he lost his lane like every game. What are you talking about?
Well, he lost his lane, but it's hard to describe. He didn't lose that much. Like I don't know. He's still
okay, buddy. I think
a few games. Okay, he had one good champion, Lucian. On Lucian he played well. He played decent. He won the lane on Lucian, and other champions he lost the lane. On the Urgot he was pretty unfortunate, some would say. Like 0-6 Urgot, if remember. But compared to the split, when I played him in the split, I literally, when I went to the game, I knew I would get double the CS against him. The whole plan against Fnatic when they had Steelback was find their 2v2 and play 2v2. If you find their 2v2, you win. If you don't, Huni will clap you in the lane swap and win the game. That's how it was in the spring split. Well, they obviously improved and changed their playstyle a bit, and especially now when they have Rekkles, so it will be a different. But yeah, to come back, I was imagining myself in Fnatic, and that was awesome. That was really awesome.
The thing is, people often say that like we just focus on the negatives too much, Monte. So it's you look at Steelback and it's easy to criticize like his laning, his champion pool, his individual ability, whether he even should be allowed to play on that team, his name being Steelback's kind of shit. But I figured out something he's really good at. He's actually very good at looking really like Febiven, but without being Febiven. That's something he succeeded at. So there we go.
Are you referring to KDA or what?
No, he just looks like him. He looks physically like Featherwing. Just take a look at some pictures sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he looks quite like him. So there we go. There's a positive for Steelback. And yeah, that's it. So anyway, here's something you kind of alluded to there, Freeze. So Monte won't know this because Monte doesn't ever watch my interviews. But in my interview with you, my reflections that I did a while ago, you were one of the few people who was actually quite critical of Rekkles before it became popular. So when Rekkles was back on Fnatic, this was around the summer split, I think is when we did the interview. You were saying that Rekkles is like a bit overrated. Like you thought you and Tabs were as good as him, and Forgiven. I think maybe it was you and Forgiven. I think this was the pool of people you said were as good as Rekkles, but the difference is Rekkles has Yellow Star, and also in his team he has very strong other players, so he gets to look really good in every game. Now, what's funny is at the time people would just be like, "Oh, Freeze is just salty that he's not an LCS."
Defense.
You know, he obviously would never be close to as good as Rekkles. But now, what's funny is now he went through that period in Elements where everyone was bagging on Rekkles, and everyone was like, "He doesn't do enough damage," and you know, now kind of the backlash started. Are you still of the same opinion? Like, you think Rekkles is a bit overhyped?
Well, in the spring split, the meta was about 80 carries, mostly. You know, on 80 carries, everyone played squishes and assassins, and if you get enough farm on 80 carries, they were overpowered at that time, I would say. If you get jungle camps and a farm on 80 carries, you are the highest level in the game, you 1v9 the game. You one-shot the assassins, you know, like we played Graves. Assassins jump on you, you just press Q ultimate and the guy is dead, you know?
Well, unless you're Rekkles, then you do that dash to get out of the team fight and then wait for everyone to die. But what you do is you slowly walk, like you half walk. You don't want to be too far out of the fight, because if you're totally out of the fight when everyone's dead, then it looks really bad, like you just left your team or something. So what you do is you walk slowly enough that whenever the last guy dies, then you've just got a slight head start on the walkout as that. Did you remember that game? It actually happened in like one of the Fnatic games that they won, where everyone died off Fnatic, and he just walked out with like full health, like away the map, like, well, that's a shame. I'll see you guys when you spawn at the fountain in a minute. Like, what? So what do you think? So basically, you're alluding to the fact that he should have been able to carry in Elements, right?
Yeah, I would say like at that time, aggressive AD carries were in the meta. They like if you were an aggressive player, you could have solo carried the team if you had the skill for it. You could look at Forgiven, you know, that was Forgiven's meta. Lucian, Grace, if you get farm of those, you become like super strong. You insta-kill everything, and you win the game alone. That was the meta for aggressive AD carries, and that's shown the weaknesses of Rekkles, and that's why everyone was like saying how Rekkles is not that good as he was before, or that he's overrated or whatever. That was why people backed on him. Now it's a different story though. Now there's like the tank meta again, and it's all about kiting and surviving as an AD carry. So now Rekkles is back in his meta, and it's the time for Rekkles to show what he's able to and to do with the team. And he has Fnatic behind him, you know, like, what the hell? You have the best team in Europe behind you, and the meta is for you, exactly. It fits you perfectly right now, so you have to show yourself. If you don't show yourself right now, then all that flame that was before was right, you know?
You gotta feel like Rekkles lives a charmed life. Like, forget the Elements period. He's now yet again joining a team with two of the best solo laners in Europe and the best support. Like, come on, man. How many chances does this guy get? Let someone else in the game. Let a Czech guy have a chance, Fnatic. Come on, what the fuck? Don't be greedy.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Oh my god, Monte, I just blew it. I just fucking blew it. I could have said that Fnatic should check themselves before they wreck themselves. I could have actually had the best line ever delivered impromptu on this show, and I blew it. I didn't say it. I said it now, but it would have been funnier if I'd said it right in that moment.
I got wrecked a bit. If you would say it before, I would just I quit.
Okay, fair enough. But okay, let me ask you about that then. So you're saying now this is the right time for meta. This is the right Rekkles meta. This is when he should do well, and his team's ideally suited where he's replacing a guy who didn't have to do much, but they were able to win anyway. Does this actually make Fnatic stronger to have Rekkles?
Well, if they keep playing like they played before and they play the low farm oriented AD carry meta they played, then nothing will change, and it will even get better for Fnatic. But there's a problem in it. If Rekkles will be the guy who will keep asking for farm, then one of those two carries that were carrying before will get less farm, and they will have less resources to do the damage they had before. And then it might change the team environment or change the way they play. So, and from the games I saw, he was requiring the farm. So, for example, Hune was left without farm. He was running around with full tank Gnar that he never played, you know. He always played carry top laners. And now, for some reason, he played full tank Gnar, didn't farm sidelines. The sidelines were left for Rekkles. So there is definitely a change in the team. I can't really judge right now what is it going to bring or what is it going to change about the Fnatic. They looked kind of sloppy in both of the games they play compared to MSI performance. So I guess they didn't fit enough yet, and we have to wait for it if they adapt well together. Because now they have free carries who demand three of those champions or players demand the farm, and you can only get that amount of farm, and you have to split it between.
And for me, I think that Fnatic is better off just continuing on their strategy from last season of letting Huni, who definitely is an elite top laner on a global stage. We saw how well he performed individually at MSI. So when you know you have one player that can perform at the highest level in international competition, probably shouldn't fuck with his farm too much. He can certainly carry that team. And Rekkles is a player who should be able to do a lot with very little. So go ahead, I'd say keep Febiven and Huni getting the farm, and Rekkles may not look as spectacular as he normally does, but they were able to, like you were saying earlier in the show, do a lot with Steelback. Rekkles is obviously a direct upgrade. If you don't change the dynamic of the team in that way, then I think you just instantly upgrade yourself and you keep on rolling in that direction. And I think that's definitely the best that we could see them do.
Exactly, and the games Fnatic lost was because Steelback was getting caught. Half of the games they lost was only because Steelback either lost the laning phase super hard, like was 0-6 or whatever, or got caught in the team.
I would argue that they also lost games because their strategy was incredibly transparent, and like you knew what Fnatic was very good with what they did, but you knew what they were going to do. And if you look at the game 5 at MSI between SKT and Fnatic, where they just got wrecked by Bengi's Nunu, like they are predictable in that.
Yeah, and he knew exactly what Renova will do, so he just slap him in the face straight there.
So here's one of the problems then, is that essentially what this discussion becomes is a discussion about how triple threat teams can work in League. And the real answer so far in the history of League is that they don't work.
They don't.
You can't have a real triple threat team.
They do.
You can have okay, give me an example one.
Well, Rekkles is always a threat. No matter how much farm he has a perfect position in those teamfights. He's like, he doesn't do the most of the damage. I wouldn't even say like he's hyper carry, whatever, but he always is there. If Huni or Febi fail, they will always have the support from Rekkles, who will step in for whoever failed there, and he will start doing what the other failed of doing. So, for example, if Febiven does a damage and then he fucks up and dies, then there's still Rekkles who still can carry. Even if he gets low amount of farm, he can do a lot. Like as an AD carry, even if you have low farm, you can still do a lot. You can clear up the team fight if you have those two guys that are already doing something. So I wouldn't say he's a carry, but I would say he's always a threat. Because he always survives.
It's still a concern, though, in as much as usually what happens with the triple threat team is usually one of the threats has to accept not being like the full carry. He has to be like a half carry. In some games, he'll get his chance to. Other games, he has to give up farm to the main guys. So you're talking about here, if Rekkles demands that, like if he wants to be one of the main carries, then one of the other two, Febiven or Huni, has to give something up. Then the problem here, it's kind of what Monte said, is that if you looked at the other players, Huni's definitely not the one you'd want to be giving up farm because he had one of the highest differentials versus all the other top laners in his region. Like he's one of the players you want to go hard on because he's going to have a huge advantage. Whereas right now, it's hard to look at Rekkles and go, oh, if you just give him all the farm, he's going to beat anyone he plays. Like, not so much.
Well, that's true. And well, it's partly given by the meta. Right now, you don't really shine as an AD carry. You're just there to support your team and hold your team, hold their hands if they fuck up. So you pretty much can't that's why SK was failing in the tank meta so much in the playoffs. If you get all the farm to AD carry while enemy play tanks, well, they will fucking build Tormel and just wave you, bye bye. And what are you left with? An AD carry that has 400 farm at 30 minutes and then no one else to do the damage. So right now, being an AD carry, I wouldn't say it's tough. It's just it's different than it was before, and you have to adapt to it. So you play utility champions now. New Ashe is coming, stuns, slows, engages. That's your job. You're not the one who's supposed to destroy everyone and get a pentakill 1v5. You don't have the damage for it. At least you need.
So speaking of which, you don't get to play stuff like Draven anymore and just do that, do you?
Well, I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that's true because you're the only person who just stayed on the shit team, but were do everything that I say, though, guys. And they were like, yeah, sure, whatever you say. It's like, thanks, that's all I want.
and give me those creeps on bot lane, please. Make them focus towards me. I will come there in 2 minutes. Make it ready.
So here's a question for you then. You were just saying there about SK's problems in the playoffs. How much of the problems in the playoffs, how much of it do you actually put on Forgiven? Like, did he fail to perform in any of the games in your mind? Could he have done more than he did?
Well, he did really well. He pulled a lot of bans on himself, which is already a spectacular player. Like, if a AD carry gets 2 bans from an enemy team, then something is fucking wrong.
And some games 2 bans and they first pick an AD carry.
Yeah. Yep. And they banned AD carry themselves. They banned.
Well, that's what we were saying in the playoffs. Is like, if you have that many AD carry bans against you, step the fuck up, Fox and Freddy, because somebody has to be able to carry with all of their champions available.
Yep, exactly. But there was this attitude problem, I would say. Like, they weren't really. They were at the point where they didn't really know if they will keep playing with Forgiven or not. And when they were winning, it was all right, But once they lost when they lost the first game, I could have already told that they will tilt, because they will argue or whatever. They will have a bad attitude. They will not know what to do, and they will play like a solo queue. They didn't play like a team once they lost, and everyone tried to carry. Everyone failed at it. Forgiven I had the same feeling when I was playing relegation, when he got those bans on AD carry. Instead of feeling like, okay, my team will step up now, the moment he felt like I need to carry even harder than I was carrying before. And he played Jinx, immobile champion. That is not much of his style, and he was trying so hard to win the lane that he was overextending so much and get punished for it, and then completely lost the laning phase. And that was all about being not mentally strong enough in the best of 5 series. So SK wasn't strong enough in their mind. That was all about it. Like, they had the players to win if they would just say, okay, we will man up, we will do this, and we will give farm to this and this guy, when Forgiven obviously doesn't have a champions. Forgiven has 2 champions. When he gets farm on those, or he had those, he carries. If he plays other champions like Corki, gets all the farm, guess what? He will do nothing with those champions. They're the champions who support your team. They poke, they bring the utility, and then the others have to carry. And they still play the same playstyle. They were giving everything to Forgiven, which was bad, and they didn't adapt.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main problems that I brought up too, is that they don't know the Corki timings. Like, Corki will still be farming when he needs to be sieging a lot of the time when SK play him. So they just miss it entirely, and then he's a shitty AD carry in the late game.
Yep.
Freeze, tell me this. From professional play, IEM, and the playoffs, people would look at Forgiven's Corki and go like, hey, he doesn't even know how to play that champion. But Forgiven told me in solo queue he has some insane win rate on Corki. What's different about playing the champion just in a solo queue game and playing it in like a pro game in that meta?
Well, in solo queue, you basically, whatever Forgiven plays, honestly, will destroy lane. It's all about his mindset, all about his playstyle. He can play whatever. He can play Teemo AD and he will destroy some of the bot lanes in LCS, So playing in solo queue is way different than playing in pre-main, since you will destroy the enemy bot lane because you play against randoms, obviously, and then you snowball from it. But that doesn't necessarily happen in the pre-main. And in pre-main, you have to play around your power spikes. Like, if you don't play around your power spikes with those tier 2 AD carries, you're completely useless. Like, you will do nothing. Once you get the Train Force, your bot tower should be already done, and you have to do something with it. And then you can snowball from it. And there's a big difference between solo queue and pre-made, because in solo queue you get kills in the laning phase and you snowball from it. In pre-made, you don't get shit in lane. You have to snowball the advantage and the power spike you have.
See, what's interesting here, though, Freeze, is you're saying that, like, in pre-med that doesn't happen. But I'm remembering this team. It was called Ninjas in Pajamas, right? And what used to happen was, in practice, this laning team would go... What the hell is that sound in the background that's super loud? Is that Monte?
Yes, it's
some
Korean,
political shit going past.
It'll be over soon. Let me just mute myself.
Anyway, so I remember this team called NIP. And what used to happen in practice was this bot lane, some like Czech guy and this guy called Mithy, used to like dumpster the shit out of everyone on every champion, get all these kills, snowball the game to the extent the game never even went to a mid game. It was just over already. The other team surrendered at like 10 minutes. And then they were like, wow, turns out League of Legends is easy. I think I've completed this game. What's the top score of this? I think I've got it already. And then in actual like real games, they wouldn't get those early kills. And suddenly they'd be like in the mid game with like mid game champions and they weren't doing anything. They were super hesitant. And then they'd let the game go to the late game, and the other team, like usually like Polish players or just or guys from like a team called like Millennium or something, they'd just like have scaling champions and then shit on their souls and dreams and hopes. So it does sometimes happen in pre-med as well, Freeze.
Well, it does sometimes happen, but not much. Like in scrims, it was free elo when we played. We won against everyone.
There's actually not any elo in scrims, though. Right? There's not actually a ladder. Like you're supposed to be practicing for the game. I think I've cracked this problem here.
We clap kids. We destroy kids. That's what
exactly.
That's what we do in scrims. But in pre-made, people don't play that retarded. I would say. Like in scrims, people try out 2v2s. They go aggressive and stuff. And in pre-made, mainly in LCS, those guys are hugging towers. And you can't really do much when you're used to the completely different game when someone is playing and trying to outplay you, and then you come to LCS and those players hug tower, and you're like, what the fuck am I gonna do now? Like at this time I was about to have I was 5-0, having 5k lead, and when I look in the LCS game we are 0-0, we have no lead, and then you're like, what the fuck are we gonna do? We don't know. And then you start to tilt because you weren't ahead. You don't have the advantage you had, and well, yeah, that's what happens in pre-made because people just hack towers and wait for junglers.
Okay, then let me ask you this then about Forgiven. So, when you're talking here about his style of play, I actually had an LCS level support player back when Forgiven was on his streak at the beginning of the spring split, where he was like unbeatable and he was never dying and he was wrecking every lane. Even at his best period here, I actually had a support player who told me like, oh, I can already see a flaw in his play though, even though it hasn't been exposed, which is that he only wants to play like the uber carry style. So if he's ever in a situation where like he should actually play a little bit defensive, he almost won't ever do it. Like he'll always contest every CS. He'll always try even from slightly behind to like win it back. Is this actually a component of his game, do you think? Can he be more versatile than he is at the moment? Does he have to play that style, that hard carry style?
Well, he doesn't have to play. He doesn't have to change his play style. It's more about, like if the team plays around him well, then the team will do well. But if he obviously doesn't have a team that can adapt to his playstyle, then he has to change if he wants to win. But Forgiven's playstyle is very unique, and as long as team know how to like support him, he will do well and he will carry those teams. So I think he doesn't need to change anything.
Is he the best AD carry in the West?
Yeah, I would say so.
Is it close though? Are there other people around the level?
Individually, in laning phase, as Forgiven says all the time, in laning phase he's the best. Pretty by far,
Yeah, in the laning phase.
Yeah, but he has some flaws. Obviously, every player has flaws, and sometimes it's hard to find them and punish it, and sometimes it's not. And mainly now, I would even say that Gambit bot lane will do very badly in LCS, especially because, since the meta, at least in the EUs, you literally play 2v4 bot lane. Every time you have a TP on top lane or you TP bot lane, every time jungler is able to gank, he ganks bot lane. That's how it was. And mid lane roams. You just dive all the time. You play around bot lane, you gank it all the time. So, and then you realize that Forgiven is the one that only goes forward. There's no other way than forward. And then those 5 people will be like, ha ha ha, Forgiven, juicy free elo when I gank this guy. And then they keep ganking him. And since Edward is the guy who plays aggressive as well, he doesn't have the support from SK, who was, like playing safe and was like, maybe you should lower the steam a bit, so we don't get ganked. Now they both are like, go in, go forward. And then everyone just ganks them, and they do the fun question marks in all chat, like when you camp them. And let us 2v3, please, and such on.
Monty, that's what I love about LCS level players. Think about the logic of that. The logic there should be, I'm getting camped all the time. Maybe I shouldn't play aggressive. Instead, they're just like, cowards. Why don't you go play in your own lane? This is lame. Lamer. Is that the only way you can win the game? Is it camping me? You don't want to... unsurprisingly, mate, like H2k doesn't want to let you just shit on their bot lane and snowball the whole fucking game. Yeah, I wonder why that is. It's so illogical, isn't it, guys? I'm pretty sure Double Lift and Forgiven, their dream for League of Legends isn't like change the meta of AD carries, like change the champions viable. Their dream is that a new version of basically they want like a 2v2 magma chamber to become the new pro version of League of Legends. And then it's complete, then it's fine. That's fair. That's how it should be played. It's a proper duel between two players. Or they want the bot lane to be like the hockey rink. Like you can never have too many men on the ice. If you want to bring another man into the bot lane, the other guy has to leave. Like the support has to leave if you want to bring the top lane. Then it's fair, yeah. Then it's fair.
Onto the bench.
They don't want any power plays. Yeah. You can't have like power plays, Monty. That's unfair.
It's time for the top laners to teleport in to help the AD carry. That's actually amazing.
But that's the analogy. Let's keep the analogy going, Monty. All that Forgiven really needs now is he needs what the great hockey players have who get bullied. They need the enforcer. He needs Diamond Procs to be ready to come in at all times to watch his back. You know, people can't just hug it. People can't just crowd him, push him off the puck. He needs that enforcer to come in, beat the fuck out of some people and scare people so they don't want to gank bot lane. So Freeze, if Diamond is just 24/7 ganking bot lane, problem solved. It's the jungler's fault, right? We've got to the bottom of it.
Well, funnily enough, he keeps taunting everyone to gank bot lane. He's like, he keeps whining about getting ganked, and then in the end, he's just like, oh, you have to gank bot lane, right? His overall mindset keeps taunting every jungler in LCS and tell the jungler, you have to gank him.
We saw this before. I don't know if you saw the episode we did with Forgiven before the playoffs, but he actually said, I challenge every team, just ban out all my champions and let's see what happens to you. And then everyone was like, okay then, we will. Then he was like, shit, my reverse psychology did not work. Like, what? I don't know what he thought the best case scenario was, that everyone was going to hear that and be like, huh, I'm not just going to do that because you tell me to. I'm going to play 2v2 with no lane swaps and just let you have all your challenge. What do you think was going to happen, man? You were playing fucking Unicorns alone. They weren't just going to play straight up, were they? Like, come on. Ridiculous. Actually ridiculous. So that's another thing. In Forgiven and Double Lift's world, they wouldn't have it so that it's like Dota where you have 5 bans or you can only ban somebody from one role. Bans just wouldn't exist. It would be like blind pick. Everyone can just pick whatever they want. So they can just pick their best champion and be like, oh, finally, a fair game. That's all I ask, a fair game.
No AD bans. The dream.
Okay, let me ask you, if there was no political aspects and no contracts and no like people worrying about his personality, which EU team would have been the dream destination to put Forgiven on? Like he could make their team super good, it would work really well. Which team would you pick?
That's really hard to tell. Like if I could put him anywhere,
aside from in the dumpster where you wish you could.
Oh.
Who do you think? Who are you thinking of?
I actually don't think there is a good EU team for him.
I think I can think of two that I think would be really good.
I think there's a good NA team for him.
Yeah, I would say NA as well.
Who would you pick in NA?
I would say Liquid. Team Liquid.
Or TSM.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, if you put him on Liquid, then aren't there going to be like 3 threats again? And then what, Phoenix or Quas has to give something up?
No one thinks
he would play with Express though.
I mean, the obvious joke there would be that would solve the problem of junglers ganking him all the time. You know, you put him in a region with no junglers. You know, see what I did there? Yeah.
No.
So no, anyway, but I actually have 2 EU teams I think would have been good destinations for him. Team number 1, H2k. There we go. How about that? They don't have any god tier. I think that would be a pretty good match for him.
Yeah.
They can win games fairly quickly. They don't have to go super late game. Here's the other team. This one, admittedly, there's no way he would join this team, so it's pointless. But I think Roccat wouldn't be bad.
Yeah,
upgrade at Roccat.
That's true for Roccat.
Yeah.
The problem there is he'd then be playing with Steve. But maybe he could just say, hey, Steve, Get the fuck out of top lane. I'm taking all that farm. And Steve would be like, sure thing, sir. Coming up. Where would you like me to go? And then here's the other thing, Freeze. Because he knows Steve's never going to bully lane and win anyway, he could literally have, every time they try to 2v3 him in bot lane, he makes it a 3v4 because now he has his jungler and his top laner. The jungler comes down, the teleporter top laner TP's in, and now he's got a 4v3 in the bot lane. There we go, problem solved. The Forgiven game mode, I've solved it. I fixed it all. All you need to do is give up every other resource to Forgiven, and he can win the game. I think I'm on the same page as him here. I think I'm preaching here. This is like his message, right?
Yeah, he will learn from it, and next split, maybe, we'll see. Rocket Forgiven.
So you're making it sound like Gambit's going to be shit then, because if their bot lane's going to be one of the worst, like you said, aren't they going to do badly?
Well, they still have Diamond, and they still have
Cabochard is good.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you just said they still have Diamond. You know that Diamond is much like the playoffs. He turns up like 1 in 4 games at the moment.
Well, in the spring split, then they were winning. They won like 7 or 8 games in a row, and those games were won just because Cabochard and Diamond, like those. Yeah,
wasn't that when Diamond was like spamming fucking Nidalee? Now he's playing.
Yeah, that's true. He abused the Nidalee, but still, like he was 1v9 on the champion. Like other players, they had the good Nidalee, but not that good. Like when I was watching Diamond Prox play Nidalee, I was like, what? Wow, what the fuck? This guy's. You have to ban Nidalee or you lose. You insta lose, And he was the main reason that they were winning those games. And if he finds that same motivation he had before, this split, they can do really well. With Cabochard, obviously, as well again.
So Freeze, one of the things that Forgiven always complains about is he was one of the first to be hardcore whining about Thorn Mail. So when he was complaining about it, okay, his solution that he's come up with is basically just you have to build double lifesteal every time. You have to have like Bloodthirster and Blade of the Ring. What do you think of this approach to the tank meta?
Well, I will explain one thing, okay? Forgiven never runs MR. Never, ever. He goes lane runes.
Forgiven, Freeze, you're not understanding here. Again, that's unfair. Why are you using magic? I've only got swords and stuff. Like, you're only supposed to build damage. You're only supposed to build armor. Be fair. Come on, be reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. He goes 80 attack speed armor. He goes defensive armor, but no MR. And what does Thormail do? 35% of total damage you do returns as magic damage. Woo! You have 30 MR and you play against double Thormail and you don't buy MR or go runes and you have 1 lifesteal item and you're hitting really hard because
you're basically Forgiven's like that Tormund Giantsbane guy out of the Game of Thrones, but the problem is he's facing like White Walkers who have like magic ability and stuff, so he has no chance. All you can do is run there, Forgiven. You can't win that battle. Okay, don't go 1v1 there. It's not going to work. That guy can do magic and shit.
The thing that you're forgetting here, Freeze, is that you're supposed to win the game before they get the Thornmail, right? If you play aggressive enough, if you get all those kills, they never get the Thornmail.
If you kill Inhibitor while all other first towers are alive, like Forgiven always wins, then you win the game.
Exactly.
But you don't do it all the time.
You just have to understand.
You have to go forward.
The key to Forgiven is to understanding the game in the way that he understands it, Freeze.
You don't leave bot lane. You take Inhibitor. You only go forward, even if your team is dying.
This is the darkest time for AD carries, okay? Because you're describing now, like, even if you go the double lifesteal build, it's really hard. And if you don't, then obviously Thornmail can wreck you completely. So for most AD carries, Freeze, they're searching for answers. But I've got the answer. I've actually found out. I'm going to reveal it to you now and everyone watching. I know the answer to how you beat the tank meta, okay? And to find it, I had to go way out into the jungles. And I had to, like, cut my way through. And I asked the villagers, like... And then in translation, it said, like, have you seen the wise one? Is he around here? And then they told me, like, in their language, like, translated again, like, he's up in the mountains. Like, we only see him from day to day. And he never comes and speaks to anyone. And I was like, okay, I find them. And then as I went up this mountain path, across this, like, creaky rope bridge, and, like, one of the ropes snapped, but I got over just in time, like, whew. As I got there, I got to this cave area, and scrawled on the wall were these like Cyrillic letters that said like Genja's cave. And I went into the cave and I just saw an old man like with a beard huddled around like a cauldron working on something. And I said like in Russian, like I don't even know Russian. I can't do an impression of Russian. like whatever. And then he said to me, and then he turned around and he passed me like a scroll, and I opened it up, and it's like his latest workings. I brought to you, Freeze, the latest workings of Genja, the prophet, the oracle. He has to put himself away from civilization to channel the gods. You know, if he's got everyday reality around him, he won't be able to enter the spirit world and steal back the medicine from the gods. So here's what he's found out, Freeze. You're in the tank meta. Think about this logically. Follow the logic, okay? You're in the tank meta. The problem is, when you fight against these enemies, first of all, they've got Thorn Mail. They're returning damage to you, so you don't want to do too much damage to them. Secondly, they're really tanky, therefore they can stay alive for a long time. Your problem is you're thinking like Forgiven, like, right, well, I'm an AD carry. I need to do lots of damage. Damage is the way out, you know. If the problem is damage, I've got to do different types of damage. I've got to get Mercurial Scimitar. I've got to have some MR. No, you're thinking the wrong way. It's the tank meta. The clue's in the name, Freeze. What Genja has realized is, if you go pure AD runes, then you can start cloth with pots. Therefore, you have armor early games. You can survive. Then, depending on the order, sometimes last, sometimes third, you build Randuins. That's armor. Now you're tanky as well. You're getting tankier. No one can kill you early. That's the secret, Freeze. Genja's cracked it. Genja, lord of the Warmog meta, when he was building fucking Warmogs and winning games, he's come back to humanity, like Game of Thrones, to save us all. He's going to teach us how to beat the White Walkers of Thornmail, Freeze. What do you think of this Randuins on Corky build that Genja's doing?
Very interesting. You know, it has sense. You walk in, you slow enemies, and you catch them by it, you know. But I think...
Could it work in pro play?
No.
Why not?
Well, I would have to see it from Genja himself.
You don't want to Valk into their backline to use your Randuins active?
And slow
That's what
them.
you do. It's the six strats. You fly over their tank line, land, and then activate your Randuins.
And then you Gatling gun, so you reduce the armor as well.
Yeah.
So your tanks do more damage.
And that's when your Zed comes in from the side and kills their carry.
Imagine this, Freeze. Imagine this play of the LCS big plays hashtag. Okay, their team fight starts. They have like some Bjergsen type dude who just pushes out, like he does the ultimate from Azir, but you Valk over it. You hit the Randuins at exactly the right time on all of their carries. Then in come your top laner. In comes the mid laner. You wreck them completely, and they're like, "Oh my god, how could we ever have predicted that?" That's Genja, bro. He's ahead. He knows the future. By the way, speaking of which, this is how Monte. I think Genja, in a weird way, bearing in mind he has no personality, like he never does interviews, his actual real personality as a person might be my favorite in League of Legends. Think about this. So Genja, back last year when Corki was OP and everyone was using it, you could never find Genja player ever. But it's like he gets a message in his cave from the world, like the rest of the world, the last Corki player has died. And Genja's like, now it will become my main. And did you see that picture, Monty, where he's played like 100 games of Corki in the last like 2 weeks? And that's all he plays now. Now that the rest of the world won't play it, he's like, finally, you are ready to become my champion, my main. Like, what the fuck? Amazing. What an amazing time we live in, Monty. I get to say that I lived in the time of Genja. I saw, you know, great men come and go.
You saw the glory of the lore.
Were you a Genjite?
Why not? Why not be a Genjite?
I don't know. I wasn't paying much attention to the LoL scene.
The good thing is, even if Genja loses, you have like this fun little sort of lateral thinking problem where you have to figure out what Genja's thinking was behind why he went this particular build path. Like what was he thinking was the win conditions of this game? And it's actually kind of like a cool little puzzle to have to figure out, like what would his motivations have been here, and why did he build the Zephyr against like an obviously AD? Like it's just so brilliant, Monty. It's so much fun to play. I enjoy it. Unlike all those spoil sport party pooper at ULCS casters, I love that game. It's one of my favorite mystery games. You know. Decoding the Genja. That's one of my life's quests. So, I have another question before I forget it. So, when we were talking about Rekkles before Freeze, there was a very interesting little delicious... I was licking my fingers at this delicious morsel of drama that I got from Rekkles' AMA. Maybe you know what I'm referring to here. So, someone asks Rekkles, like, who his top AD carries would be by region. So he lists out the NA ones, he lists out the EU ones. EU ones, by the way, have like Yarnan and stuff in. And I noticed in this EU one, that's interesting, no Forgiven, not even top 4 EU. He then mentions like honourable mention, very honourable there, I've mentioned. If anything, Rekkles, you're an honourable young man, you know, leaving Fnatic that way. Leaving Fnatic for the team that just won EU LCS and thinking, I should, if I can't beat them, join them. Then Fnatic wins EU LCS, you're like, if I can't beat them, join them. Leave that team as well. So anyway, we can see that you're very much out there for the team concept. Honourable guy. So honourable mention, Forgiven. He says Forgiven is the best individual AD carry, but that, you know, we can't really count him as the top AD carry because his champion pool is too narrow. He's a good jokester, isn't he, this Rekkles fellow? What do you think, Freeze? Rekkles versus Forgiven, what do you think?
Well, he didn't explain it himself. Well, he said the champion is narrow, which is not true. Like, Forgiven plays a lot of champions in play. He plays Ezreal, Corki, Lucian, Graves. What he had to say was Forgiven is very hard to convince that he should play meta champions.
Okay.
He has his own mind and he refuses to play something that I would say he's a hipster, man. He refuses to play Kalista and Urgot.
Oh, he's got some Genja in him then. He's got some Genja in him.
It's too easy to win lane with those champions. That's his reason.
Dude,
well, you have to handicap him when he's the he's the best
Monte,
player.
He really is the EU doublelift, isn't he? If you're hearing this logic, it's too easy to win lanes with each other. Like, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your fucking mind? The whole point, mate, is to win. It's not like you don't get points for degree of difficulty in winning. I always thought that was doublelift's problem. Doublelift was like the guy where he had, like, if he was a basketball player, doublelift has terrible shot selection. He's like Kobe Bryant, okay, but because he makes the hardest shot, he thinks that should count like for 5 points. But it's like, that's still just 2 shots, 2 points, right? Like the easiest open shot is 2 points, and the hardest spinning jab step reverse face fadeaway with 2 guys in your face is also 2 points. So there's no point picking Vayne and toppling into everyone, hoping you dodge every skill shot, then pentakill, because that's still just 5 kills anyway. Like, no, that's 5 cleanup kills, mate. It's the same.
But then you're a god, you know?
It's true. You are a god if
like
you do that.
God.
Yeah. It's all about if you look like a god.
That's the preference, you know? Is you either want to win and you do everything to win, or you want to be considered the best. And
you either die.
Do that.
You either die the hero carry AD carry, or you live to see yourself become a cleanup support bitch.
Finally enough.
That's what happens, Freeze.
That's exactly what can happen soon, because he's desperate and he tries out new champions, and we will see a few of them. And he told to me, like, in the spring split, if I ever play this champion, kill me. And now he plays the champion. So I don't really know what to do. If
I just thought it was,
or if I should not kill him.
I just thought it was a bit rich from Rekkles. The same Rekkles, by the way, no, narrow champion pool, who was getting elements to first pick him Graves, then not even carrying the game. Like, you're doing the first half of what Forgiven does, but then not the actual stuff in the game, mate, where you're supposed to carry the game. Secondly, I'd love to see Rekkles in a world where he has the kind of people that Forgiven had as his teammates, and is getting 2 bans, and the enemy first picks a champion away from him. So he's playing his 4th best champion with no other carries. Instead, Rekkles plays his whole career with Soaz and Xpeke, Huni and Febiven. Like, let's see what Forgiven can do if you give them some of these solo laners, mate. Then everyone can't 2v4 him in bot lane, can they?
Well, I would actually be super looking forward to if that would happen, if Forgiven would be in Fnatic, because there's 2 possible scenarios. Forgiven, the team would be Beast, or the team would crush and burn, like someone said, you know?
Here's the analogy, Freeze. Forgiven is this young, angry, but really hungry and motivated black man who comes out of the ghetto, and because he's come from nothing, he's had to work really hard. He's had to do extra time. He had to get tutoring to help him pass all his college courses, but he's going for it. And before his dad died, his dad was like, just promise me, son, promise me you get out. And he's like, I will, Dad. So he's going so hard. But the thing is, eventually, because of how corrupt the system is, and, much like in real life, with all the problems and discrimination, AD carries are discriminated against in the League of Legends game. So sometimes he has to bend the rules. He has to do crimes sometimes to get enough money to fund his dreams and to get where he wants to be. But then Rekkles comes along, who's this silver spoon-born kid who just put onto a great team. So in this analogy, he already has a great job that his dad gave him, and he doesn't even have to work that hard, and he gets like employee of the month constantly. Meanwhile, there's some like beasts at his company who are like wizards and geniuses making all the money together that he can fritter away. And he's like, hey man, why are you committing all that crime? Why don't you just do it like me? Like, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, man. Why don't you just make it? And Forgiven's like, I promised you I'm never going back there, man, no matter what it takes. That's the dichotomy between them. That's the analogy there. That's the movie I would make, Freeze.
Well, they're exactly two opposites of the players, you know, like Forgiven is exact opposite of Rekkles, and I really don't know, like I don't think they even like each other because they are so opposite.
How could they? How could they, man?
Yeah, well, you know, all this like PR bullshit on stream, like, oh, this guy is good, and then they completely think something else about themselves, you know. So it's pretty.
The only thing they have in common, unknowingly, is that no matter what team they join, after about 2 weeks, they both find themselves thinking, this isn't actually all I expected it would be, and I wish I was on a different team now, including my past team. That's the only thing they have in common, Freeze. That unites them, that quality.
Yeah.
Where do you think then... Okay, let me ask you this question. If Gambit aren't going to do that well, do all these problems that Forgiven's had, like obviously his PR's taken a hit because it's been implied that SK kind of forced him out, they didn't want him and stuff, and then everyone says he's super toxic and all that stuff. If Gambit doesn't do well, isn't this kind of like it for Forgiven? Like, where's he going to go after this? He's not going to join some super mega team. He's not going to join TSM or something.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be a Rocket, you know, and stuff like that, where those
so the summary for Forgiven's career is there will always be Rocket.
Players in Europe. Is that what you all just say now to comfort yourselves? There will
always be
Rocket.
Rocket.
Woolite. There will always be Woolite. That's what you say.
I wouldn't put the name,
hilarious.
I think there always will be a teams that, you know, like if they get Forgiven, they can play around them. You know, like those teams, they can just put everything on Forgiven and like, please, Koreans, please, we will do everything. We will slow push our lanes and give you the farm, and then Forgiven will carry those teams. You know.
So isn't Gambit going to do that?
I don't think they will do that.
Why not?
Well, firstly, we scrimmed them already, and they have Cabochard, you know, like, and Cabochard, in the spring split, he was the one who was getting the most attention from Diamond Procs. Diamond Proc was constantly ganking top lane. He was the carry, he was getting the resources, and then everyone else was like running behind Cabochard, you know. So I don't think they will put all to Forgiven. They'll most likely share. And funnily enough, when we played Gambit, Forgiven didn't have 400 CS in 20 minutes, you know. So he didn't take everything. And Cabochard was as well. Get it? So that was like 50-50, and they were sharing farm, which was first time I saw Forgiven sharing farm with someone. So I don't think they'll do it. And I think they'll still focus on getting Cabochard ahead and just having a strong bot lane that can, you know, get a TPs from Cabochard when Cabochard is ahead.
So there's two ways this can go then, Freeze. Either when everyone's ganking bot lane, Cabochard can just carry the game anyway and he can just wreck the top lane and then maybe they can win that way. Or what happens is, Forgiven's giving Cabochard what he calls like a courtesy 5 games, and after 5 games, he waits till the game when Cabochard gets completely shit on and really loses. And when Cabochard's really down, he just sits next to him and puts his arm around him and he says, listen mate, Cabochard's like, oh, I don't know what I could do. Like, there's nothing else I could even do in the game. And he goes, there is one more thing you could do. Give me all that farm and I'll carry the game because you can't do it right now. Look at you. Look at you. Who are you? You're not Darian. Now give me all the farm and let a real man carry the game. Okay, we on the same page here? Forgiven on 5. Hey, just like, and then he goes, that's team play. That's being a teammate, Freeze. It's sympathising with a guy, showing him there's hope. There's a way out still. Listen, there's always an option we haven't tried here, guys. Give everything to me and, you know, basically sacrifice all of yourselves and I'll become, essentially, they're trying to make Voltron, and Forgiven is the head of Voltron, and they all have to fall in line as the parts of Voltron, but you can't be the head. Like, Forgiven is the head. You're just an arm, Cabochard. So get in line, do what an arm does, connect to the body, and shut the fuck up, mate. Because I'm Forgiven, okay? So you don't buy the logic then that by giving Forgiven a super aggressive AD support player, like he can just dominate the bot lanes and win?
Well, they can dominate, but I expect them to do much better. I think they just didn't clash well yet, you know, together with Edward, since he was playing with Unrated before. Unrated was exact opposite, and Unrated was playing like those poke champions already supports, and they were trying to like poke the enemy and get them off the tower. But now they play all-in champions, and they're highly desperate of getting hooks on and stuff like that. And well, as I said, I didn't really expect them to do that bad. Like they can obviously do so much better, and I think they will do once they get some team play together with Edward. But they're not a good bot lane at the moment, I would say. Well, they will get better, obviously.
There's another bot lane I want to ask you about, okay, which is the Origen bot lane. I'm just going to say Origin, Monte. I'm not going to keep saying that shit. You can say it all you want, mate, and feel like Spanish or whatever. I'm calling them Origin, and if they don't like it, well, there's nothing they can do about it, is it? So Origin, there we go. Also, I think they missed a trick, because their shortened version of their tag is like OR. It should have been OG, you morons. You're all the old players from Europe who are the old gangsters. You fucked it up again. No one ask me for marketing, everyone. I will market your teams the best. If anything, look at my career. I've done a wonderful job of marketing myself, keeping things going.
Just said that.
Hey Monty, I've proven that like no PR is bad PR, because I've made us both more famous in doing so, right? Before Monty, think about the world before the Summoning Insight episodes we're referring to before, okay? Before those Summoning Insights, Monty, you were just a guy who cast Korean League of Legends. Like, people liked you who watched OGN, but that's about it, you know? Maybe people knew you as the CLG coach. After that episode, we became as famous as, like, people who were the star players of teams, the coaches of teams, the owners of teams. We became in that mix, okay? We weren't just commenting on the drama. We were the drama. See what I did for you, Monty? We are the drama now. See? That's
Great.
what I did for you. I want you to say something like that as part of the eulogy at my murder.
We are the drama.
Yeah.
Is this like We Are the World, except a newer, shittier version?
Yeah, we are the drama. And it's like me, you, Double Lift, Forgiven. Just goes through all of us. We are the drama. Yeah, we make the world interesting, Monty. On weeks where there's just shit games like Elements versus Giants, we provide a little bit of spice for the world. We keep the show going. But what was I talking about there? Oh, the question I want to ask was about the Origen bot lane, because obviously your old buddy Mithy finally, after enough time, I mean, he had his own problem with like toxicity, you know. He had to be put onto like an island where they could check whether the leprosy would in fact kill him. But actually, much like a sci-fi movie, he's one of those people where being exposed to that much toxicity actually just made him into a mutant, and it maybe made him stronger, you know. So they've brought him back much like Blanca out of like the Street Fighter movie or something, and now he's ready to unleash and show us what he's capable of. Now, I alluded to the story before that everyone always used to tell me about Mithy, like, oh, he's like the god of laning, like he just everyone he plays with, they dumpster lane, they wreck lane. Is it the same with Niels? Is it a similar Mithy to before?
Well, he changed. He understands the meta more, right? Like, he was always understanding the meta, was just one of his strengths, that he was always, like, he was really smart about his own play. And he plays Alistair and stuff like that. So those champions, they're not the greatest in laning phase, you know, they're not the lane bully. Sure, if you're a god on Thresh, you will hit every hook on enemy AD carry, then you will destroy the lane. But with those champions, you generally are satisfied if you go even in a lane, and then you can carry the team fights on. So like on those champions, when I talk to Mithy, he thinks that he can 1v9 with those, which he can, obviously, because he's really good. And I believe that Mithy might be one of the best supports in the EU after the split. He even might be on the same level as Yellowstar. We'll see. But it's incredible what he does with players himself. Like what he did to me, you know, like I was a kid back then. I didn't know anything about the game, and he taught me everything.
Wait. So you're talking about what he did to you. You were a kid back then. He taught you a lot of things you didn't know about. You're like, are you sure this is supposed to be happening, Mr. Mithy? He's like, listen, your parents left you here for a reason. Now turn out the light and let me show you about poke. Anyway, whatever. The jokes present themselves, please. Anyway, but what did he do to you? How did he transform you?
Well, he teaches you the way how you should play. You should play smart. There's There's so much you have to understand about the laning phase, about the champions, about the matchup, and how you should play. And funnily enough, he did the same with Niels. He literally he's the brain, you know. When for example when Niels played Vayne, I knew exactly what Mithy was saying in the champion select. He said, "Niels, I lock you Vayne. I don't care if you play it or not, you will play it." That's what he was saying. And then when I asked after the game, Niels, he was like, Mithy said, "I will lock you Vayne, you will play it, Niels." And he just played it. And he played it like second or third time in his week or 2 weeks when they didn't even play Vayne, just because the Vayne was perfect match in that matchup. It was incredibly strong there because no champion could have killed Vayne there, and they even like tried to lane swap and get her ahead. And if she gets ahead, she will carry the team. And that's how Mithy works, you know. He doesn't really care about if you're a god or something. He just puts everything on the matchups and how the game will work and how it will develop. And that's something super rare. And we don't have that in EU, on supports. This guidance, you know, when they tell you everything what you should do. And the same works with the in-game. He's the main shot caller and he says everything. Like when I played with him, he was guiding everyone how to play, what to do, what to focus on and stuff like that. So him as a player, he's really good in lane. He's really good in mechanics, and on top of that, he has the level of mindset and the mind of Yellow Star. So Yellow Star and Mithy are like those top 2 supports in EU, and it will be super fun to see what he can bring to the team and how they will do. And I think they can even be top 3, top 4 easily in the split if they keep performing like they do. And they really clash well, and they have the superstars, you know, they have X-Pac and stuff.
Yeah,
so basically,
it was really surprising how well they did right at the back. I mean, obviously, I had never seen Niels play. I wasn't really watching the team or anything like that while they were in the challenger scene, but they really delivered right off the get-go. So it's interesting to see.
Yeah, and they didn't even play that lane. You know, they just played the lane because it was good in that team or in that comp, which is even more dangerous and rare than you can find. Because normally people have a champion pool and they don't want to go on the champion they never played before. But you can tell that about those guys that they can do it anytime and they can just play whatever they want. And that's the dangerous path.
So basically, when you get introduced to Mithy, he's much like the scene in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, where Freddy grabs a young man and then he rips part of his own skin off the top of his head and says, "I'm the brain and you're the brawn." Except that Mithy doesn't actually kill you. And he isn't a dream warrior. But aside from that, it's exactly like that, as I'm sure you'll now agree, Freeze.
Well, when I met
Some people
first,
say I crowbar these jokes in here. I don't know what they're talking about, you know. These are just this natural flow of the conversation. Isn't this how you all talk?
Yep.
So what do you think about Mithy then, yeah?
When we first met and started playing, we really clashed badly. You know, like we both had an idea how to play the lane, and the ideas were completely different. And I wanted to play my way, and he wanted to play my way. And in the end, it took us about 3 weeks till we finally found the same way and clashed well together. And from that moment, we were playing super well. So he is the one who forces you into something. You know, he doesn't back off. He's a very special guy, I would say. It's really hard to describe, but playing with him was the best thing that could happen to me in esport because I learned so much.
Yeah. So when you first started playing with him, you were sort of like, listen, Mithy, you were like, Mithy, lock into Tresh and you just play like a Danish guy and follow me in the lane. Yeah. And then he was like, actually, I can't do Mithy's accent, but he would basically just be like, didn't he just tell you that like playing aggressively was trash or something like that? Something absolutely insane like that. Like, okay.
We go Draven, Tresh, we go 4. We get level 1, we go for level 2, and we rush in. And he was like, "Are you retarded, man? That playstyle is so retarded. I will refuse to play like that." And so on. I can't really describe that.
That's actually a good Mithy impression.
The whole time you were wearing a wire, and you were like, "I'm sorry, Mithy. Like, the only way I can get out of this particular version of the curse is if you get banned. So I'm having to send this recording to Riot Light. Like, I have to sacrifice you and Nuke Duck this time. Normally, my sacrifices only involve like a couple of people, but you have to go down for me to get past this one." So. When you said there, like all the great things he can do, will the actual Origin bot lane be one of the best?
Well, I haven't played them yet. We haven't scrimmed them either, so I can't really tell. But
why have you not scrimmed them? All these teams in LCS, did they scrim not very much?
Didn't you have like an entire season when they were in Challenger to scrim them?
We did, but they didn't want to scrim us.
Yeah, but Monte, didn't you know? They were in Challenger, that means they're trash. Except when Freeze is in Challenger, he's like, "This is why isn't everyone scrimming us? This is bullshit, man. We're really good in Challenger." And thus the cycle continues. Yeah, why weren't you scrimming her when they were in Challenger? Aside from the fact it's SOAS and Xpeka, so we know they don't actually play practice. Well, they just play solo queue of other roles and then run around playing ping pong in their mansion.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that how it goes?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and swimming in the pool. But yeah, when we actually played them, but that was like a month ago, or when they're amateurs, or 2 months ago. And back then they were only lane swapping. They were lane swapping every game, so we didn't get to lane them. But I think they will be really strong. Like, I would say if Mithy plays with anyone from solo queue, he is really good mechanic wise as an AD carry. That bot lane will be one of the strongest, because Mithy will teach him how to play, and he will teach him his own way, so he will fit him perfectly, the AD carry, and they will clash together super well, and they will be super strong. So I would even say that they are top 2 bot lane right now in the EU. But, well, we play them next week, so...
I like to imagine this as some sort of Pinky in the Brain scenario where Mithy is going to come up with all these incredibly intelligent schemes to take over the LCS, but he has to prevent Nails from fucking up and stopping his plan.
Well, don't really know what's happening there, but...
Here's the test, Freeze. You've just set it up there. There's this support player who's he's got impeccable standards. He's very demanding. He has a set way you're going to play. If you play with him, he'll even pick your champions for you. He'll tell you how to play. He'll change your whole style of play. You see where I'm going here, Freeze?
Yeah.
What we need to do is introduce Mithy to Forgiven. Now what the fuck would happen? What happens when the irresistible force beats the immovable object?
They would destroy it would be the end of the world,
yeah,
man.
Imagine if that was like a reality TV show. Those two on the same bot lane. Just start the cameras rolling.
How is the TSM thing called when the cameras are around, Like a camera following Forgiven and Mithy everywhere where they go and play?
I don't know what it's called. I just call it shit. I'd call it shit.
Oh, okay.
Do you think Mithy could break Forgiven? Could he convince him? Is he a good guy at talking people around to his way?
Well,
I mean, you've already said that he's like, "That's retarded," and Forgiven will be like, "Finally, someone who speaks my language." Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. What's retarded?
Well, I think Forgiven has high respect for Mithy, and he might change a bit, but he wouldn't follow Mithy everywhere. It would be a very special case of clashing them both together.
Okay.
And I think they would both become one. They would become the same personality. They would flaming
fuse into
the
one
same
person.
people. They would be talking the same way and stuff like that. So they would be crazy.
This sounds awesome.
Have 2 Forgivens in there.
That's it. I'm gonna buy an EU team and make this happen.
Plus, didn't you just describe?
Duncan, it would be a crime to not have the world have this lane.
It has to.
And
Plus,
you know what? Frankly, fuck all those other stupid reality TV shows. I don't want to watch any of those esports reality TV shows, but I would watch the shit out of this.
Here's the thing, Freeze. You've just described there. I think it should be a bot lane we should make them, because you just said 2 Forgivens. So Forgiven will be like, finally, I've always found what I was looking for in support. Me. I just wanted me. By the way, Monte, just as a little, much like I did with Edward, I'll give you a little insight into what Forgiven's personality is like. Forgiven's also one of those AD carries, Monte, who sometimes will play support himself and then just makes those epic, immortal comments afterwards, like, support isn't even difficult. Like, why can't they just do what I tell them to? Like, it's easy. Of course I can play support. I can play AD carry. And you're like, well, no, there's more subtlety to the role. It's like, no, it's easy. Just there's no mechanics. It's easy. You place wards, whatever. I can do that. Like, that's another thing. Just to let you know, if you wonder how much he respects supports and stuff, yeah, it's interesting how that goes. So, okay, I have a question for you, Freeze. Since you've been around in the challenger scene as well, did something happen to Kněžínek? Like, when that guy was in the challenger scene, that was one of those players where I watched a few games and I wrote him off. Like, well, there's no point watching that guy. He's never going to do anything. He's just average, and why would that ever work in LCS? But actually, just as a little plug, because me and Monte are doing this stats show, Kněžínek's stats in fantasy stuff is actually ridiculous. And he's a player where, again, I would never name him as top 3 in his role, Did something change about him? Is there something that's making him effective now? What do you think? There's no way you think Kněžínek's better than you.
Nah. That's funny, because everyone is right now talking about Kněžínek, and I don't think he changed a bit. He didn't change at all. He keeps playing the same champions. He keeps playing the same playstyle. And the only thing that changed was the new support. Cassin came in. So they have now better lane than they had before, but I still don't understand the hype around it. Everyone is talking Kněžínek is top 3. They have insane win ratio in solo queue and stuff like that. But every time I just play Kněžínek, I don't see it. I don't see when I play Forgiven, I'm sometimes wow, this guy is really good. But if I play Kněžínek, I'm not really surprised that I don't have this wow moment when it's oh my god, this guy is good. He's just, I think I would rate him or compare him to Rekkles actually, because he the meta fits him right now. He plays passive.
He's Swedish.
He's Swedish. More of a supportive role in the AD carry, and plays
has a god for a support player.
Has really good support player, Cassin,
Do you want to know the story, Freeze? Not a lot of people know this, so I'm going to reveal it for the first time. But the reason why Cassin actually joined that team and why Kněžínek got this really good support player is that Kněžínek was at the end of his rope. H2k was okay, but they weren't going to be a great team. And Kněžínek was feeling kind of down. He was like, it's my fault. I don't know. I'm trying to do everything I can do, but I'm not some Forgiven player. I'm doing everything I can do at my position. I'm just who I'm going to be. Okay. And then he said, Ryu, you've got a lot of experience playing League of Legends. You've played in great teams. What could we change in the team to make the team better? And Ryu was like, Lily, I think if we just get Yarrow, and he was trying to say Yellow Star. He meant Yellow Star, and so they were like, okay, let's get Yarrow, and they got in Cassin, and actually it turned out unwittingly it solved the whole team. He was right. Rio unwittingly solved the whole thing in the scenario there.
You might be right.
Maybe that's right. What do you actually think of Cassin?
Well, he was very well. Before he joined H2k, no one thought of him as a good support, actually. They thought okay, this guy is good, he's decent. He's not a god, but he's decent. He played on Gamers 2 before, I think, an amateur team, and no one really cared about him. And then he joined H2k, and everyone was like, holy shit, this guy is actually really good. And he made the H2k go on 8 winning streak or whatever. He was 100% win ratio for how many weeks with the team, and they only changed one player from the team that they even lost to us, by the way, just to put it there. Okay. Then from the team that lost to us, even to the team that was winning everything, just because they changed one support player. I don't know what he does to the team or what he did to the team, or maybe all this Ryu stuff, he wasn't comfortable in the team, and then he finally got comfortable and they started to win the games. I don't really know what happened, but Cassin is really good and everyone knows it now.
Last season, H2k lost in 5 games to Fnatic, and then they beat SK in 5 games. How good do you actually think H2k was last season? Was 3rd place the right ranking for them?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure 3rd was the right one.
No, second was the right ranking.
You think Unicorns of Love was better than H2k?
Get out
if
of
you
here.
do, then
not
come
really,
on.
But that was it's the ladder, and
they were the same side of the bracket.
Yeah, but the thing is, and the patch as well. 5.4 was the patch, they were unbeaten on H2k.
Okay.
And then the Cinderhulk came, 5.5. And Lulix could not play Cinderhulk junglers.
It's the way he says that, like some epic thing, like, my village was strong, we had a good life, and then the Silderhulk came. He destroyed everything in his path. Ambition rode his back all the way through.
Well, that's what, I mean, the Coup Tigers will sympathize with you on that one.
But yeah, like that's pretty much the story of H2k, since they couldn't adapt at all to that Cinderhulk meta, and they paid heavily on it. You know, they lost the playoffs with it, and that's why I would say that they deserve the third place.
See, I've got another story.
Adapt, you know.
I've got another story, for another origin story you don't actually know here, Freeze, which is that actually what happened was at the Riot headquarters, they finally got around, as they do. Like once every year, they watch a couple of EU LCS games, you know, just to pay a little attention to the wildlings out there beyond the wall that is the Atlantic Ocean. And they were watching one of these EU LCS games, and they saw H2k play, and H2k was playing flawless. They were playing like Monte style League of Legends. They were closing games out. They were taking objectives. They were using the right matchups. They were grouping as a team. It wasn't all about one player. They were winning, but they were winning in like 28 minutes, 26 minutes. They were making it look easy, and Riot were like, this just won't do, you know, this is boring, the viewing numbers aren't going to keep up. And so then they said, like, what could we do about this? Like, this isn't ideal. So then someone in the back who was kind of like that guy out of Game of Thrones, who's like that maester who's like working on like bringing back the mountain to life or whatever, he was like, I have a plan, but it will involve arcane magics and unholy things. And they were like, whatever you have to do. And he's like, I will unleash my creation. And he brought out this creature that they were just like, oh my god, what is that? That's been there the whole time. He's like, don't worry, it's perfectly safe until I activate it. And then I will call him Kikis, and here is his weapon, the Cinderhulk. And then they unleashed him onto LCS, right? He just started creating these games that were abominations to God. Everything was wrong with them. They were winning these battles. He was playing Udyr. Everything was going complete to shit. And as all this happened, one of the Riot employees was even like, oh my god, what have we done? This is an affront to everything great about the game. And in the background, suddenly there was just like a chair swung around, and Morello was sat there, and he just had these flames in his eyes, and he just said like, some men want to watch the world burn. And then that's actually how Cinderhulk came to be introduced. You probably wondered how the balance meetings go there at Riot.
You should write stories, man.
I know. I'm wasted on this show, aren't I, Freeze? This show about fucking analysing League of Legends. But okay, anyway. Who were the other teams then who benefited from the tank meta, do you think, in Europe?
Mentioned Unicorns already, and then who was the other? I wouldn't say Fnatic didn't do well on that patch until they started to play like on MSI actually. So I think only Unicorns and no one else actually. I can't think of anyone else. Who else was there? SK? Nah. They played by H2k? Nah.
CW? Oh no, they got dumpstered by H2k, my bad. That Hyanan guy, who's definitely not better than you, just took a shite on your face. Even though you were playing Callista, he just put you in the dumpster.
Yeah. PG. So
come on, man, you've got to at least tell me some excuses like, oh, the fucking top laner was feeding, and I told them to group earlier, but they wouldn't listen to me, and then they don't even let me have Callista for the last 2 games. There's got to be come on, what's the excuse?
Yeah, okay. The first 2 games, we clubbed the bot lane. First game, double CS. Clubbed. Completely.
Oh, by the way, Monte, let me just break in here, Freeze. Keep your train of thought. Just to give Monte, I like to give him the context of the guests that I have on, because he never quite understands the European ones until I give him the info. You know, before when we were all having a laugh at Doublelift and Forgiven's expense, like, they think the lane's just like 2v2. Freeze is one of those guys who, if he wins a series in CS but loses every game, he thinks he won the series, by the way. Like, you know when Roccat 3-0'd them? Freeze's story of that was, yeah, but we won the 2v2 bot lane every game. Like, I just wanted to give you that context. Okay. I just thought I'd give you that context there, Monty. He won the laning phase, okay. So keep going, Freeze. Yeah, you were clubbing him in CS,
we
yeah.
Clubbed the first game, and we lost. PG happens, you know.
Oh,
outplay it. Then second game. Okay, second game we destroyed them even more than before. We had Callista versus Kog'Maw, and I think they survived 5 times with 10 HP or something. They had like 50 CS when I had 100 CS. And we had 10k lead, and we somehow managed to lose that game anyway. So after that, the team tilted a bit, you know.
Right, wait a minute. So this is the series that eliminated you from LCS. There's been a whole off season. There's been all this period of time. You haven't changed players, but your explanation for how you lost that game where you had a 10k lead was something happened, yada yada yada, and then game 3. Like, wait. There's no analysis there. You don't know why you lost game 2.
I don't remember much, but I think I remember now. We had a mid-game comp with Kalista Ari.
Yep.
And we were unable to do anything with it. We had such a lead, and we just kept farming. I let them scale, and they eventually outscale us when we could have just dove them over and over, kill Baron, Baron. We could have done anything in the game, and we would won. But we didn't. We chose to do nothing, and then that's why we lost the game.
You chose to do nothing.
Yeah,
you mean the Ari player chose to do nothing, right? You know that playmaking champion. What was he doing?
We were all farming.
Oh, okay, all farming. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, he was using those charms to hit creeps. Yeah, it turns out if you hit champions, you can catch people. You know,
the dark path of Thorin. But and then third game, I lost the lane because they kept getting.
Oh my god! Well, that must have been game over right there.
Yeah,
you probably tried to surrender, but it turns out you can't until 20 minutes.
They were scared to face
remake.
2v2. They lane swap. They ran away from me. They ran away.
That's another thing, Monte.
Go back.
He also buys into that logic of they ran away from me. Like, you're the AD carry, motherfucker.
The might.
Yeah, they were feared by my wrath, you know. So they keep running away, keep swapping from top to bot. We keep following them with Kalista, and when we follow them, they have a jungler there. So let us 2v3, please, you know. Happens. And we lost that game in like 10 minutes when we lost the laning phase. We lost all of the laning phases, pretty much.
Here's a bold question for you, Freeze. Maybe you've thought about this yourself. If Forgiven is this really good player who can carry his whole team and is this beast AD carry, but the problem is he can't win because everyone on the other team focuses him, they take bans away from him, they dive him, he's living like 2v3, 2v4 in the bot lane all the time. Why isn't Freeze in the same situation?
What do you mean now? Like,
why don't those other guys give you the same affection? Why don't they have why isn't the attention all on you, Freeze? Why aren't they diving you all the time? Why aren't they making your life hell?
Well, first of all, I'm not a dick towards them, you know, like every time Forgiven taunts everyone. He's like, when we play Scream, he just asks Airbox to gank bot lane, you know, like just come bot lane, come gank bot lane. So he can say we didn't lose 2v2.
The logic of this is genius.
That's what he says.
It's like in real life, Monte. If you were some guy who goes to bars and you have fights, but you're really good at fighting, your skills are insane, like you have insane power and really good fan speed. So in any 1v1 bar fight, you would win. But your approach as a result is to say, gather up all your mates, meet me outside, and 1v3. And then when they're beating the shit out of you, you just say like, cowards, if 1-on-1 I'd kill you. It's like, you don't win in that scenario though. Like as if Freeze's real answer there was, I don't taunt opposing junglers. Like that's the only reason he's getting to play 2v2.
Pretty much, and the mindset.
See, so you come to LCS Freeze, you have like a pecan pie for Diamond Procs, you have some Hershey's Kisses for Kikis, and you tell him, listen, I think you look really good with those glasses on. You're a great jungler. And then you go around the room, like, you're like a politician, shaking hands, kissing babies. That's your approach now, right, Freeze?
Yeah. Make friends, you know, so they gank other lanes, and then it's like, oh, maybe you should gank top lane, you know, and we die there often if you gank, so gank top lane, please.
See, and Freeze's approach, Monte, to League of Legends.
Gank top lane instead of bot lane, and I have 2v2.
Freeze's approach is keep your jungler close, but keep the enemy junglers closer. And he goes around and he says, Kikis, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but Young Buck plays in my top lane. Go there. It's free kills. It's free low, mate. I'm really hard to gank. I'll fuck you up. I'm not going to lie. If you come to my lane, I take heal, everything. I'll just fuck you up. So just gank top. No, listen, we don't even care if you kill Young Buck. That's okay. I'm going to get like... And he's like, hey, you make a good point there, Freeze, actually. Thanks for the tip. He's like, no problem, mate. Just wanted you to have a great career. Challenger guys got to stick together, right?
Yep.
Okay. What do you think about SK's chances?
Well, I think they looked pretty lost in the first week. They didn't know what to do, and I don't even think they will be top 5 actually in this split. They look pretty awful, and
Is there any light at the end of the topple?
Is
there anything can turn around?
When Sven has the motivation and has the good team environment, then he's the best jungler you can possibly have.
Well, it's a good job you didn't join his team then. Yeah, cheers, mate. You could have given him a good motivation environment. He's the best jungler. He helped you in the bot lane. But never mind that. It's worth it just to sort of fuck over whoever didn't want you to join and be like, yeah, I'll teach you. I'll stay here in my own shit. How do you like that? We're all going to lose now. No, we're all going to lose. You're like a troll. Just because they fucked with you, you're now trolling and ruining the whole game for everyone. Okay.
But I think at least they looked pretty awful in the first week, and I think they will keep losing games and they will do pretty badly.
What about when Candy Panda carried that game? Why couldn't he just do that on Kalista?
Oh yeah, not really.
Dude, do you think Candy Panda is shit? Come, be real, be real. Come on.
I don't think he's good. Well, he has to prove himself, Like he has to show me that he's worth to play in LCS. And
the thing is,
he hasn't shown it yet.
The Candy Panda is definitely seeking your approval too. I'm sure he's just sitting there, desperate for validation from Freeze.
He plays Kalista, Nah, everyone plays Kalista, so BG
because it's really good.
Yeah, good champion.
Here's the thing.
I was saying the whole split to every AD carry who was in Spring Split. Kalista is broken, man. Broken, and they're like, nah, it's not broken. It's
meanwhile,
they obviously never watched LPL.
Nobody fucking watches in Europe watches Korean League of Legends because meanwhile it's banned or first picked every fucking game for the entirety of last season.
Exactly.
Hello.
How about LPL as well, Monty? Where if you're a beast, fucking just look at Crystal or someone. If they play like Kalista, they're gonna kick the shit out of everyone, wreck the whole game.
And then
but in Europe, everyone's like, yeah, it's overrated. That Kassadin champion isn't even good. I'm not going to pick it as a fucking carry mid laner and assassin. Like, are you out of your mind? The fuck are you talking about? Okay.
Yeah, and then MSI happens, magically, somehow. International event, everyone plays Kalista, and all the AD carries in you are like, oh, Kalista is so broken. We have to play it now. And I'm here. Dude, I've been saying the whole split that it's OP. Come on, guys. So show some respect. And they're like, oh my god, guys, Kalista broken. Play it, first pick or banned.
Well, to be fair, Freeze, they saw you try picking it in those last two games in the playoffs, and they were like, this is a perfectly balanced champion. It's not even got any power, particularly. There's no power spikes, can't win lane with it.
Oh,
heyo. Anyway, the thing is, the clue is in Candy Panda's name, because the first part, Candy, he's a delicious sweet treat served up for opponents that they can just enjoy without even much digestion needed, He's a panda, so no one's ever seen him fuck anyone, and it's very difficult to get the right partner for him, So, there we go. It's all in the name.
That's one of your best jokes ever.
It's all in the name. Okay. So for you, I actually heard this is something that actually Kelsey Moser, the Chinese analyst. So in China, in World Elite, they have Spirit, who's one of the best junglers in the world. But because his team's quite bad, essentially everyone jokes and says that he has to just hard carry every game. She thinks that this season is going to be like that for Svenskeren. He has to go full carry jungler mode, otherwise SK can't win. What do you think?
I think so as well. I think Svenskeren has to step up his game, start playing a lot of solo queue, spam it, try to be the best one like he used to be.
He doesn't play much solo queue?
Well, he plays solo queue, but he doesn't play as much as he could, There's obviously some laziness included, I would say, or motivation issues, whatever. I can guarantee you that if Svenskeren would want to be the best, he would be the best jungler in EU at the end of the split. He just has to want it. He needs the passion to it and the motivation to have it, and then he will carry SK so hard. But I don't see it in him right now. I see him more likely just playing the game for fun.
That's depressing.
That's pretty.
Are we going to talk about NALCS at all?
Yeah, let's go. What do you want to talk about, Monty? Is something burning issue on your mind?
No, I just thought we'd change it up because we've been talking a lot about EU and those placements and how things might go. So did you watch any of the NALCS?
Yeah, I did. Mainly the big clubs, like C9, Team Liquid, TSM,
See, I can't tell the difference between when you say clubs and clap. So
okay. Cloud9, C9.
Yeah. So anyway, Cloud9. Did you see the TL games and the CLG games?
I didn't see the CLG game. Was it? Wait, actually.
They played Impulse.
Oh yeah, I saw
and
the
Dignitas.
Game. Yeah, I saw the Impulse against Impulse, but I didn't see the game against Dignitas.
Let's start right here, guys. I know where we have to start, because we have to start with C9 TSM. Now, first things first, Monte, you know all this hype. Oh, listen, you guys, all the hipsters, you guys don't even know. When Incarnation gets in the league, man, he's this monster midler. He's just going to, like, shit on everyone, 1v1. He's so aggressive. Okay, are you ready, guys? First game. What's he going to lock in? Oh, Kog'Maw. Great. That's excellent then. And then what's he going to do with the Kog'Maw? Yeah, nothing for like 20 minutes. Yeah, just do nothing. Down in CS, down in everything. Doesn't even get a blue at some point in time. What did you think of this, Monte? What do you think of the first game for Incarnation? Monte, hello?
I mean, he lost to Dignitas. That doesn't help you look good. And
but he picked Kog'Maw again. So.
And then he got absolutely wrecked in lane by Bjergsen playing Kog'Maw. Now, he came back well, and I think that Cloud9 showed a lot of poise in that game. But TSM also kind of lost it for themselves by wandering aimlessly into the Cloud9 jungle. Not once, but twice in a row in the late game to be separated by an equalizer. So,
and
I mean, Cloud9 played it well, but it was also pretty
TSM lost
bad.
it. TSM lost it pretty sure. With that advantage they had in mid lane, with Victor, who is incredibly strong at in the mid phase of the game, they can do anything in the game and just win the game. Kog'Maw was non-factor. He didn't have 4 blues in a row. All they had to do was being aggressive and do something with it. But what they did instead, they were farming. They were like, oh, I need 1,000 gold for this and this item. Let me farm it. And then they kept farming jungle and so on, and let Kog'Maw scale. And actually, then as Monte mentioned, they even like do stupid shit when they face check, like go into the enemy jungler and get poked by Kog'Maw, and then the Rumble ultimates were just insane. You know, like that. I don't know, like. They could. I'm pretty sure that they just could have dived them and win the game, and they didn't do it. They just let it slip through.
This game reminds me of the TSM that used to be around in the summer split of last year, where their big problem was like shot calling. They were super indecisive in the mid game, and sometimes they'd just win if they brute forced it, but otherwise they'd make like bad decisions and let someone come back into a game. Like it seemed like they just waited forever to pull the trigger in this game and let C9's champions like scale. What did you think, Monte?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they tried to. It's not that they waited too long, because they continually took dragon. I mean, they got 5 dragons in this game, so it was that they chose.
And yet they lost convincingly. C9 got 1 dragon, I think.
No, they didn't even get one.
None.
Okay. But TSM took the wrong fight, and they kept splitting up. If they had just walked into Baron and warded and played methodically, instead of walking through the jungle and having 3 people get hit by an equalizer while 2 other people are over another wall, they would have absolutely won that game. They just had to bait the Baron.
Yep.
And not go wandering aimlessly through poke zone and AoE zone in the enemy jungle. It was pretty sad, actually.
Yeah, I agree. It looked pretty bad as well. I don't know, they looked lost for some reason. They didn't know what to do, I guess, versus
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be a problem. This isn't going to be something that I really think comes back to haunt TSM, really. This is in my mind, this is like easily fixable.
So MSI added to that first game versus one of the best teams there. You don't see any problems for TSM?
No, because
no warning signs?
No, because look how well they controlled the game. Bjergsen crushed lane. They had 5 dragons. They made a small mistake that they will learn from quickly, right? I don't think they're going to continue to make that mistake.
No.
Wait a minute. If it was any other team, Monte, who were that far ahead with their mid laner on a carry champion like that, you'd be like, oh, that's a sign that they're really bad, that they were that far ahead, they had all these advantages and they couldn't convert it or anything.
No. Like, literally, it took them doing the same stupid move, like 2 or 3 times in a row, and I think you can learn from that quickly and not do it again.
This is some of the weirdest logic I've ever heard. Someone made a stupid mistake 3 times repeatedly. Well, he'll definitely not do that again. Explain it to me more, Monte. Explain it like I'm Thorin. That's the segment. Okay, come on, Freeze. Give it to me.
It's for some players, it's really hard to change a way they approach the game in game if they don't have
in that specific
mindful shot caller. But then when they finish the game and look at the game backwards, the insane embarrassment they had from that game, that they did those mistakes, will haunt them forever. So they will always remember why did they fuck up at this point of the game.
Okay.
And with that stressful memory, how much they fucked up, they will never do the same mistake again. It's like when...
Is that why you're so good now?
Yeah, exactly. When you play the game in front of thousands of people and you do something that everyone sees, you will never do it again. There is not a way you will do it again, because you will remember that stressful or like embarrassing moment for the rest of your life.
True, that's why Dyrus never overextends it in national competitions and gets caught and ganked and his shit pushed in. You're right, it checks out. We found the example. Okay, yeah.
Well, if you care enough about the game.
If you care, shots fired. Don't you care, Dyrus? Don't you care enough? Speaking of which, Monte,
I agree with what Freeze is saying about the team, and it will be burned into them. And I'd be much more worried about Cloud9, where they're getting completely shit on in lane and had 0 dragon control. Because what TSM did was they made a few mistakes within a short window, and they made the same mistake while being pretty methodical throughout the rest of the game. What C9 did was make like mistakes for 30 minutes and not be able to contest any fucking dragons, and then die. And then they lost to Dignitas. So...
Well, and the draft was pretty bad as well from Cloud9.
Yeah,
versus Dignitas. So there's
their draft against TSM was fine.
Yeah, versus TSM was really fine, but versus Dignitas it was really bad. And
you think the Cogmore pick was fine, Monte?
Well, yeah, because the short range on Cloud or TSM's composition meant that what are their options in the TSM game versus Cloud9? What are TSM's options to engage? It's like flash W from Maokai or landing a hook. And other than that, they just get kited forever or disengaged on by Gragas or Sivir ult. They actually have almost no ways to close the gap in the late game.
So you're saying TSM were the ones who drafted badly?
Well, with the way they played, if they had baited Baron, they could have forced an engage. And with 5 dragons, you shouldn't fucking lose a game, no matter what your comp is.
What is the correct way to close a game when you have 5 dragons in that comp? Bait the Baron, that's it?
Yeah, you ward up and you sit there and you just group together as 5 and you bait the Baron and wait for them to have to check into you, where you can easily engage with Maokai.
At that time, you can just flash in on someone, most likely Kog'Maw, and kill him, and then the game is over.
Monte, you know how I made that joke last week about how Dyrus is like Reek out of Game of Thrones? It's amazing how like art imitates life sometimes, because in the very next episode of Game of Thrones, spoilers, don't look away if you haven't seen it. In the very next episode of Game of Thrones, there's a scene where Sansa is asking Reek, formerly Theon, like, why did you just escape? Why do you let all this stuff? And he explains that, like, he kind of almost deserves this treatment, and like that's just the way it is. Like, it's better to live this way than the alternative, which could be much, much worse. In almost as if to mirror that, because I set up the connection there, Monte. Dyrus himself made a comment on Reddit after that game where he got the gank from Santorin and it still went to shit. He made a comment where he totally deflected all blame for TSM teams leaving him on an island to get wrecked completely onto himself, explaining that it's his own fault being unable to communicate that he needs ganks and that, he's really to blame for it. What do you think of this analysis?
It sounds like bullshit. And it can't be, sure, that may be a contributing factor, but yeah, that does sound like some Reek level shit that's going on there to avoid, being castrated by Reginald somewhere in the dark depths of the TSM house, and to just deflect that away from his teammates. But at the same time, if your jungler understands the game, he should know when and how to pressure the top lane with certain compositions when it'll be good. That's it.
See, that's the problem. I'll bring this up now. of all the players in TSM, I could understand when Xpecial had issues with Reginald because maybe he had something to say about it or whatever. But I always had this horrible feeling whenever I saw every time there was a drama within TSM involving Dyrus and Reginald, right? Dyrus would always make like a vlog afterwards where he'd be like, listen, you guys don't understand. It's not Reggie's fault. Like, it's my fault. Like, I should learn to communicate better, and I've learned a lot from this, and it won't happen again. And it sounded so much like one of those like beaten wives who's just like, listen, you don't understand him, you don't know him like I do, like he's had a very stressful time at the office, and listen, I did kind of fuck up, like I didn't make him exactly that dinner he wanted, and the chicken was a little bit burned, so I kind of was asking for it, and then it's like as he's describing that, Dyrus, suddenly Reginald just like coughs like and he's like just kidding, hi honey, like that just depresses me when I see people like putting the blame on themselves like that, Monte. If he'd just said, listen, in my team, I'm the top laner, but who doesn't get much farm, whatever, like, it's just my role. Instead, he has to be like, really, it's me who has to learn to, maybe when you need help, you have to learn how to ask for help. Maybe that's my problem in life. Come on, man. Stop being Reek, dude. You are not Reek. You are Dyrus. Dude, Dyrus, when he first joined TSM, he was such a fucking boss. He used to be such a good top laner. He didn't always play these tanks and act like a bitch and get wrecked all the time. He did that some of the time when it was appropriate. Other times, he carried the game. You remember back in the early TSM era when they were the best team? He was a very good player.
He played Singe, no, at that time more.
Yeah, he played a bunch of carry tops. I mean, admittedly, then he was like, listen, at the time, Freeze, he was living in the NA bubble. He was like, wow, I'm like the best player here. I can play anything. And then he had to play like Reapered. Then he had to play Shy. Then you see Maknu, like, you see what I mean?
Did break him a little bit. That's true.
That was his version of being flayed. And after that, he became Reek, this creature that's just subservient, just carries like a plate for someone, gives Reginald baths and stuff. Like, it's a terrible situation. Maybe that's how Reginald won him over. Maybe Reginald once gave Dyrus a reward. He gave him a bath, and that was such an emotional moment, and this giving of something for the master-servant relationship that forever won his heart over, and he became in that moment, instead of Reek, I guess he's Dyrone or something like that. That has to be like his name. No, Dyrus is gone. Only Dyrone remains now. Like, okay. Freeze, do you think TSM are the best team in NA?
I wouldn't say the best team right now. They had some flaws that didn't look like they're the best team, but they will be the top two. That's easy to say. They will be the top two in the end of the split. So if they fix with the issues, obviously. But I think they have like the strong players to do it and to be really good. But we have other teams, like Cloud9 and stuff. What are they gonna do if they change the laning phase and stuff? And obviously CLG went pretty well as well, or Team Impulse played pretty well as well in my opinion. So I have to see what they.
Impulse kind of shit the bed against CLG, but Impulse is a team that wins or loses hard. That's just how it rolls with them, right? They go crazy aggressive, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So.
See, Monte, I feel like the problem here is when we have some of these guests on the show, if the guest is like Forgiven or it's like Tabs, there's a part of them will never go too hard on TSM because they're always looking at TSM like, wait, they've got wild turtle, right? If I just wait like one more Worlds, this could be my time. Like if I just keep doing my thing over here and I don't talk too much shit because old Reggie doesn't like that, then maybe finally TSM freeze. It could happen. It could happen.
TSM.
He can't even say TSM properly, Monty. He said it. He even said the TSM chat in some fucked up way. He was like TSM. Come on, man. It's unreal. But to be fair, you won't need to speak English when you join TSM because you'll be communicating with Lost Boy. So you just play the game, mate, and he just does magical shit, and you win the game. Like you'll be living the life then. You'll be living the Rekkles life then when you get to join TSM and Bjergsen carries the game, and you just right click on people in team fights. You'll be loving it.
Yep.
You'll be right there with your boy Rekkles. So, what about the CLG team, Monty? Do you believe in them now? If you don't have faith, why are you even here, man?
I thought Cobelter had a pretty solid showing, but again, like I said, Impulse is really streaky and inconsistent, and Dignitas is bad. So I'm still waiting. I'm looking forward to TSM versus CLG this next week as a more accurate test of their strength, let's say. Obviously Impulse is a good team, but they're just inconsistent.
Hit or miss, yeah.
Freeze, what do you think? CLG, do you believe this season, is this the one that turns it all around? Paul Belter, the young POB?
Well, I always had like a good feeling about Paul Belter. He used to always perform well.
But on a bad team, yeah. Oh, I can see why you'd like that. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I can see why you'd like that. Yeah, it makes sense. Listen, you don't need to explain it to me, mate. Keep going.
You always find a way, man. You always do.
Just keep going.
You found that one yourself. I don't know.
Okay. No. He pushed me into it. But yeah, I always had a high feeling about him that he performs well and he can do well if he will have a better team. So
that's what's interesting though, Freeze. Here's the thing, right? I've heard in the past, he might have been considered for CLG. Listen, they're not the best team that are definitely a lock for Worlds, but like they might have turned him down or he didn't get through the tryout. But instead of like trying to spite them by making himself suck and them suck, he was like, you know what? If I join them, then we can become better together and we can sort of overcome these petty differences and become like a great team, So just a lesson for life in some ways, Anyway, continue on. Just throwing that out there.
Well, as Monte said, they played Team Impulse and Dignitas, well, they're not known to be good. And Team Impulse, they play well if they get an early lead, but they got stomped that game. So both games were pretty stomped in my opinion. So we didn't see much from CLG except the laning phase and the early game. So yeah, I want to see what do they do in the late game if they can hold on and if they play 50-minute game versus late game scaling composition, what are they gonna do if they will crumble under the pressure of the scaling comp, or if they will find a way how to come back and catch someone, finish the game.
It also took them a long time to close against Impulse, longer than it probably should have.
Yeah.
For how far ahead they were in terms of kills.
Yeah. So, let's see what happens the next week, they play TSM, right? So
yes,
that will be actually for both teams, that will be the exam for them, how well they will do, and that will determine how well they will do the rest of the league or the rest of the split.
See,
until the new Cinderbolt comes in, right, and messes everything up.
Yep. After the new met.
See, we should be saying that'll be an exciting regular season game, because it is just a game, the first meeting in a split, and that's it. That shouldn't have much consequence. But I can already tell you now, more people will watch TSM versus CLG, this one meaningless game in the split, than watched KT Bullets versus SK Telecom in that final where it was 3-2. More people. This is more significant, Monty, in the history of League of Legends, and will be remembered more
in the English-speaking world. You are correct. In the greater world, more people watched KT Bullets versus SK Telecom K than have ever watched the LCS game. So there's that.
Wait a minute, did you just say in the greater world?
Yeah.
Racist fuck. They're greater, are they, Monty?
Okay. The world there and then
Korea overall, yeah, okay.
He's becoming a double A fanboy a bit, everything else is trash.
Everything else is thrash? No, trash, mate, yeah. Thrash.
Come on.
It's talking about it doesn't even mean anything, yeah, okay. So, what do you think then about Tip? Monty had them a bit hyped at the end of the season, he thought they were going to make the final and maybe even win. Could Tip be the best NA team, Freeze?
Well, I wouldn't say the best. They can definitely be the top 3, since they have really good players. And as I said, if they get an early lead, they always snowball. So
yes, some really good players.
Well, some really good players. Most of them, I would say.
You think Apollo's a really good player?
Well, you don't need an AD carry in this meta,
Oh, okay.
You just need someone who throws out a utility or whatever and survives the team.
Don't say that. Copenhagen Wolves just spent all that money keeping you, mate. They could spend that money on something else. You fool. You definitely need an AD carry, guys.
Of course.
Depending if he plays Draven or not. That's give him a bonus if he does. That's the best champion.
But yeah, if they will keep having those good early games, then they will definitely be top contenders for the NA. But who knows? They have to win the early game. I don't see them being top team if they have to always win the early game to win the game. Pretty much, if they are even most of the times, then they don't do that well. And
maybe they can be the KT Arrows of NA and make that one dream run without being the best team. You notice that, Monte? Never actually the best team, but as long as you win that one time, that's all they remember.
Yeah.
And LoL Esports would then write an article like, notice how someday completely shattered the illusion of Acorn as a top lane player by defeating him in a match where 9 other people were playing and did other stuff that might have affected the game. That's how they would write it up, Mike. That would be the headline right there. Okay, and here's another... Oh, and the other one, obviously, the other joke there would be like, Arrow completely establishes himself #1 AD carry in the world over Deft. There's another conclusion they'd come to. That's a fun game to play, guys. If you want to play a little game, it's a hypothetical game I created called Interpret Famous Events of the Past through the prism of lolesports.com writers. It's a fun game. It's really fun to play, man. I love it. It's great. So, yeah. Anyway, another question I have about Tip. So, let me think. What was it about? Okay, about...
Going back to that, so we should use it for more historical things, though. It's like U.S. leaves Vietnam, loses Vietnam War, no longer preeminent global power, right?
Vietnam, #1 country in the world, possibly the start of a new imperial empire. At USA to be disbanded into North and South again within 6 months. Yeah, exactly. That's how it would go, yeah. World War II, Germany actually never even was very strong militarily. They lost. They didn't even have any weapons at the end. They never had weapons. And it was just an easy win for France, believe it or not. Turned out they were the strongest country, yeah. France actually baited Germany into the main O-line, playing possum, as it were, and then turned out to be stronger overall. In the late game, it was all about scale and comp money. Eventually, you get enough resources, they win. Yeah, interesting.
Fucking hilarious. All right.
So, yeah, we'll play that game another time. We'll keep that in the wings. So my question is, actually, I just remembered now, since I was talking about Draven, and Freeze is a famous Draven player, there's an AMA recently where Imp was asked what he thought about Draven, and Imp said it's too hard. What do you think about that, Freeze? What do you think about the fact Imp thinks Draven is too hard?
He's a pussy, man, if he thinks it's too hard. There's nothing too hard. Everything you can learn. It only matters that if you want to learn it, then you learn it. And once you learn those champions like Draven, you never forget. You become the Draven player,
So
you embrace
the bicycle of League of Legends. Once you learn it, you never forget.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like riding a bicycle.
Yeah, pretty much. At least on Draven. I would say the same with Vayne. Once you learn Vayne, you can always play it, even if it's not meta. You just have to pretty much.
You know what I like about this analogy is that we're sort of saying that any ID carries who can't play Vayne and Draven also it's like they can't even ride a bike. It actually kind of sums up exactly what I think of.
Wheels, the old training wheels.
It's kind of what I think of those sorts of players. Yeah, they need the old training wheels, Monty. They need to just play Lucian.
They need to play with Mithy, who will guide them through the laning phase. Mithy is the dad who's running alongside the AD carry, holding the handlebars.
But maybe that's the analogy. Monty, that's the analogy right there.
Lane with him.
You've completed the metaphor unknowingly, Monty, because Mithy's problem is he's awesome at teaching them how to ride the bike. He keeps hold of their bars, he encourages them, he tells them what to do, but then right at the end you're supposed to let go and let the kid go on his own, and then Mithy's problem is he can't let go. He just hangs on too much, and maybe that's a lesson for us all. When you love something, you got to let it go, Monty. A bit like you had to let all those KT roster teams go, and all those players that you loved, and the #1 spot as a caster in the English language. So all those things you let go, Monty, but eventually, don't worry, all your love will be returned one day somewhere. I'm not sure how. At this point, it's going to have to be something epic, but maybe it'll happen. Who knows? Maybe.
I'll just go to a different game. Fuck this shit. I'm out. I'm coming to Counter-Strike to invade your game, Duncan.
Well, I mean, apparently, even if you're a shit LoL caster, you can just come over to Counter-Strike and it'll work out for you. Great. You did think, it'd take a lot of time and effort to learn about it. Amazingly not. Someone just gives you a job anyway. Hey, it's fun, isn't it? Yeah. Speaking of Silver Spoon people who were granted a life in that way. Anyway, Freeze, what do you think about Rush, the jungler from Tip? Because everyone hypes Rush because apparently he's some sort of solo queue god. Like every time he goes to Korea, he hits #1 on the ladder. So supposedly he should be some sort of god. What do you think of him? Is he really good?
Well, everyone is talking like, oh, he has a rank 2 in solo queue in Korea, you know. But then
Rank
I
1.
see a rank 1, and then I look at the game. He plays Evelyn, and he goes purple smite, like.
Is that like a
facepalm, you know, right there? Because if you go, you have to go red smite on Eve, because then you can 1v1 anyone on, like, you know, you see enemy bot lane farming, enemy ADK farming bot lane. You just go there, 1v1 him, kill him in 2 seconds with red smite. You go back, voila, 10-0 Eve for no reason with the red smite. You can 1v1 everyone. You have so much damage. You have the tankiness from the ult as well. I don't know why. Why would you play purple smite?
You don't need to farm on Eve either, because it's like, okay, well, you have your gold now. What are you going to fucking buy on Eve? She's like a shitty tank. You're now a shitty tank.
But even if you don't have the purple smite, you insta do the camps. You have AoE Q, you have the claw. Like, buying a purple smite on Eve, you know, like, that straight up tells me that guy doesn't know the champion, and he plays it. And then everyone is talking about him like, oh my god, it's rank 1, he's super good. And then he doesn't even do well on Eve, you know, like doesn't know what to buy as a smite. So
see, Monte's really like those AD carries who are complaining about this meta. He's like, you know, what's the point in playing Eve? She's just a shitty tank. He doesn't know that. I'm like Genja. What I do, Monte, when I play junglers, I play Eve, and I just selfishly go for a pure AP one-shot build where I have like Luden's Echo and Death Cap and shit. And all I do is I just run in, one-shot one person, and then get the fuck out of there with the W. And I don't even do any tank work whatsoever. And either we lose the game so goddamn hard because I'm building like a Sheen as my first item, or we win so hard that I'm like, I carried that whole game. I'm the carry. So that's the new build, junglers. Yeah, tell Airwax about that. He'll love it. It's great. It's really good, dude. And because we're in the tank meta, well, there's never going to be like an MR dominant meta. So you're never going to have to worry about too much magic resist. So tell him about it. It's going to work, Freeze. That's my own little Kickis style innovation to the game there. It's good. Great. It's a good, man. I'm telling you, it's great. It's great. It's in the meta. I'm making the on meta. I set the meta. So, okay, if we've gone through TSM, C9, well, okay, aside C9, we mainly talked about Incarnation there. The worry about C9, Monte, as we've already referenced before, was that in getting this strong mid laner, you had to give up the shot caller. Have you seen any signs of that? Is there any issues, do you think, so far?
I thought the shot calling in the late game against TSM was quite good. They made TSM fight them on their own terms, and they looked pretty poised in terms of their objective trading, but the Dignitas game was such a fucking train wreck that, like, I don't even know what to think anymore. Because after the TSM game, I was like, well, it's a problem you don't have dragon control, but at least you outsmarted them late. But Dignitas, my god.
Well, the TSM Cloud9 game, that was pretty much just getting to level 16 Kog'Maw, to be honest. Like you mentioned before, they had no way on getting on the Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw had like defensive summers as well all the time up. So once Kog'Maw gets level 16 and you don't have any engage at all whatsoever, then you have to play the game how the opponent says you'll play the game. And Cloud9 mentally strong team, and they know how to play when they have the advantage, so they just play the game. That was pretty much just surviving to level 16 the game. I wouldn't even say that they were like somehow super smart. It was just the Kog'Maw pick and the draft. But yeah, and then the other game they get stomped. So Freeze,
Monte doesn't know this. Monte doesn't know this information that I'm aware of, okay? That you are like the #1 sneaky fanboy of all time. Like when we did our interview, you just kept, it's almost like you just had your head propped up on your hands, like, that Snicky is so good. Like you're just loving this guy. You think he's the shit. Do you still think he's the best?
Well,
you told me he was the best Western AD carry. He's better than Forgiven?
Back then, well, Forgiven wasn't a thing back then, but
he was alive. He was a thing. He just wasn't in LCS. Yeah.
He wasn't in LCS, right?
Okay.
And back then, when we had the interview, no one even thought Sneaky is good at all. And I saw him as like he first split he didn't do well, but then second split he started to become really strong and really good in position, and he always did well and was always consistent. And I saw it, and no one was actually believing me that Sneaky is good, but I think Sneaky was had his prime, and now he's like at 90% of what he was before. Like a split ago or 2 splits ago, he was the best.
Okay.
But right now, I can't really. He's not better than Forgiven, that's for sure. And I'm not sure who's the best AD on NA. Well,
double lift.
There's no one, shining.
Oh, okay.
You have a double lift, you have sneaky, then you have a wild turtle, which...
Yeah, I remember you want to be on TSM, we know, okay.
Yeah.
But that's the one you're supposed to say he's not good, because that's the one you want to replace, bro. Don't tell him he's good. Don't tell TSM he's actually a good player, then they might not pick you up. I've got to give you lessons on this. I'm going to coach you. Yeah, okay. So if Forgiven had gone to NA, he would have just wrecked everyone.
Yep, pretty much. If the team would do what SK did for him, then leave him resources and play around him, then he would do exactly the same he did in SK. Crush everyone, pretty much.
What do you think of Sneaky, Monte?
Just super stable. Does his job. Good player. Not going to probably make plays that win you the game. Not going to make plays that that lose you the game. In the right system, I think I think that some of Cloud9's fault, while Sneaky has gotten better, it's that he needs these strong solo laners. So he can survive, I think, if Incarnation starts to play very well. He will be a very nice... Yeah. He will be a nice addition to Incarnation's strong play. But I wouldn't build a team around Sneaky, but Sneaky is a great role player, like a really, really strong role-playing AD carry.
Here's the thing, Monte. Like, if you want a metaphor, an analogy for Sneaky, I'm going to kind of reference back to an old metaphor I once gave, where I told you when I was once comparing KT Arrows and Samsung Blue, and I did it about like the girl who's like the fling and then the girl who's the reliable one. It's going to be like that, okay, Monte? The thing with Sneaky is he's like that really great girlfriend that people often get ready like around college time, He's like a 7.5 out of 10 looks, but the thing is he's not arrogant about it. He's like a really cool guy. He's got a really cool personality as well, really down to earth, really great, like a good friend as well as a partner, like you love to spend time with him. He always cheers you up if you're feeling sad, takes care of you if you're sick. The problem is, even though he's like a 7 out of 10, he's not like the hottest person. So after you've banged him a few times, it's like, he doesn't make the sexiest plays. He just makes the stable plays. He's a nice to be around, but it's not that exciting though, You kind of, in a way, you can see the allure, the temptation to want to be with like a double lift who's like that solid 8 out of 10, but with a looks, in terms of looks, but with a really bad personality, who's like incredibly high maintenance, always causing drama, always like, you think everything's fine, but then he's like, oh, why didn't you say that to me then? What, you don't care about me at all, do you? Making you like prove your love for him, the high maintenance, having to buy him gifts, give him these resources all the time, and then, that's just the way it's going to be sometimes. So that you're veering between the two. Which do you settle with? Do you go with the one that's so fun, that does excite you, does have the qualities, or do you just stick with the boring one and accept life for what it is? It's the eternal dilemma, my friend, and no man has ever truly figured it out.
What would you do, Duncan? What would you...
Listen, I think we all know what I'd do. I'd bang the shit out of their 8 out of 10 and try and put up with her bullshit and then just say, right, I'm getting a new 8 out of 10 when she lays. I wouldn't settle for the quiet despair of a great girl but who didn't blow my mind. See, that's the thing, Freeze. You only get to live once. So do the crazy things. Be with the people who are outrageous and that they run hot and cold. Live with passion, Freeze. Don't just settle for what seems okay because, they're your friends and they're a team who were with you last season and they took a chance on you. The whole point of someone taking a chance on you is you repay that by being the best you can be. You go to that better team. You join them. You qualify for Worlds. You go to Korea, man. You get to play in Korea on the Korean ladder, play in a World Championship. Yeah, I kind of stopped talking about myself there for a minute. I kind of went into something there, but we'll see if the message went over there, anyway. So continuing on, he asked what I would do, Monte. I secretly told him what he should do, though. You see what I did there? The best lessons in life, the best lessons in life. So one of the teams last season who had a lot of hype, like we were saying before, was Liquid. And part of the hype was that they got it together at the end of the split. Like in the last few weeks, Piglet got back in the lineup. He was doing well. Then they had the run through the playoffs and they finished 3rd overall. Now, they had a chance to make the finals as well. When you actually look at them, if you remember, one of the storylines that people forgot, Monte, was there was that tweet that someone made, I think it was like a Riot official, where they said that there was some sort of bug on Piglet and Xpecial's mice that they just got fixed for the playoffs. So there was even a thing like, oh my god, maybe they actually were playing with the training weights unwittingly, and then when they took them off and they fixed the mouse, suddenly Piglet was a god and he was wrecking doublelift. Are they still a team that you see a lot of potential for? Have they kind of cooled off to where you know what a quantity they are yet? Anyone? Liquid, Beulah?
Well, I can judge. They played two weaker teams, I would say. Then they played against Maple Street, who pretty much lost the game.
They had such a soft schedule. Like,
I feel like Freeze.
They played TDK with 3 subs and then fucking Team 8. Like,
Freeze, do you even read Reddit, bro? Maple Street has sick mechanics, don't you know? What's wrong with you?
No. I don't know. I don't read the Reddit that much, but I watched the game and, well, yeah, they
gives
have
you a different
really
view.
Easy schedule. Would say that way. Don't flame anyone, you know. But it like when Team Liquid plays Team 8 and so on, then you can't really judge them. It's just like, you know, you steal a candy from a baby. That's pretty much it. It's so easy to win those games, and that's what is weird about NA. You know, like NA, there's a big difference between top teams and lower teams.
Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night in EU? That
EU better than NA.
EU is just like
better than
no,
NA.
It's not about better. It's that in EU you're all good. Everyone's good. Everyone is on equal footing. Anybody can take a game off of anybody. Yeah, that's the EU way. So that's how you deal with like ending up 7th.
Well,
okay, great.
Yeah, basically, Monty, just because he thinks he comes 7th in EU LCS, he also means that he'd come like 3rd in NA LCS.
Like,
I mean, let's get real here, Monty. Come on,
You would be like 4th in NA, man. Easy. Why swing of the hand?
Exactly. Bungie, have you noticed that?
TL, by the way, TL this week has to play Enemy and fucking Gravity. Like, when are we actually going to get a good test of this team? They have the softest schedule in the first 2 weeks out of any of the other top teams.
But have you noticed, Monty, this is how you know Freeze also has been rehabilitated from being toxic, because he used to be known as someone really toxic in solo queue. Even by like opponents said he trash talked them all the time. Like, actually, apparently, Monty, you'll like this. Apparently, before they played... Vander always tells this story, Monty, about how when Roccat beat Nip 3-0 in that relegation match, that Freeze walked by really arrogantly and just sort of was like, huh, just like shook his hand at them or something, as if like they were nothing. And luckily he was right, actually. It turned out that Vander guy never went on to do anything and never like placed high in playoffs or anything. That never happened, okay, so he was right. He was total trash. So here's the thing. It's the way Freeze said that. He was like he said there, well, I don't want to talk trash on anyone, you know. I'll just like say that they had an easy schedule and compare the teams that they lost to helpless babies having candy taken from them. Like, okay, well, no trash talk there then. Like, to him, that was actually like tame. Like, what he said there was just like, I'm not even trash talking anyone. That's just reality, right?
If it's the truth, it's not the flame. You know,
that's my defense, mate. Listen, my lawyer's tried that many times. It doesn't work, I'm afraid.
Sounds like some sort of Game of Thrones, like Lord of the Fire shit. If it's the truth, it's not the flame. It's the inverse of that.
Yeah.
So you admit to worshiping darkness.
Pretty much.
There's truth in darkness.
But like Game of Thrones,
flame there.
It actually works, Monty. Like that magic actually does work. It's not without power. That's the thing. So. Another team after those ones that people might actually have hype around was Gravity, because last season they were having some good games. What do you think of the new Gravity, Monty?
Whatever.
Did they upgrade by getting rid of Cop?
Come on, whatever.
Did they upgrade?
Gravity. They lost a fucking Enemy, dude.
But in their own way, Monty.
I'm done with NA teams that aren't called TSM, Liquid, Team Impulse, and CLG.
Why do you say it's a problem that they lost to NME, Monty? Surely they lost because NME is like a really good team, right?
No, they're not.
Oh, so what you're saying is they lost because they were their own worst enemies.
No, you mean they were the worst enemy? I think what you mean. It's not. You have to give it the slight little tweak, right?
Okay. They were the worst enemy.
They were the worst enemy.
Because enemy was the best enemy.
Their own worst enemy. So yes, I don't anticipate great things from Enemy or from Gravity this season. I just don't see the consistency being there. And Gravity lost to Enemy and then beat TDK with subs. And by the way, that TDK game, TDK was actually pretty even with Gravity for a while with 3 substitutes.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
That speaks for itself. But yeah, I don't even know.
That game was closer than it should have been.
Yeah.
So what does Monte think about Seraph now? You made some tweet where you seemed like quite excited about him.
I was happy that he was doing well. I think that he's gotten a lot better and that he's holding his own much better in the laning phase right now. He's probably his experience probably helped him overcome some of the nerves that he had that I knew plagued him when he was on CLG. And he seems to be solid. I don't think he's going to be the best top laner in the NALCS, but he's a focal point for his team, and I like watching him play carry top laners.
See, you were talking shit on EU there, but we've just gone through 4 teams, Monty, and there's now no one left to talk about in NA. There's another 6 teams, bro, and none of them are worth talking about. Which of the 6 would you like to talk about? You got a choice of Gravity, TDK, Dignitas, Teammate, NME.
No, I don't want to talk about any of them.
They're all garbage.
Can we talk about Korea yet?
Yeah, let's just skip that section. Okay, let me ask you this then. You was talking a bit of shit on Dignitas there. Is Dignitas, out of all these teams, is it clear that Dignitas will be the worst?
No.
No, I don't think it is clear because they beat Cloud9. I thought they would be worse than they are. I still think they're going to be number 10, but who knows? Who knows who will end up in the 10th spot now? There are many attractive candidates.
Yeah, it's sort of like a bad version of The Bachelor. They're all competing to be the one selected to be automatically relegated. And if they fuck up enough dates, then they will be the one automatically relegated. They will be chosen to be replaced by Alexich and Misfits next season. when he boosts his own team into LCS. Now we move over into LCK, as Monty always refers to it as when I speak to him. He just puts on this fake front that like he doesn't like the name and he prefers to call it OGN. You know, actually he loves the name LCK. He's gonna name his child LCK. That would be the initials of it. I'm not sure how that would work, but somehow it'll work in some way. So in LCK, we had a bunch of teams that are brand new teams that nobody knows anything about, who aren't necessarily as shit as they initially seemed, right, Monty? That's kind of the theme of last week, was like, wow, Anarchy can actually get games maybe off some teams. Svenu maybe isn't absolute trash. What do you think at the moment of the bottom teams?
Yeah, Svenu has shown that they can put up at least a fight in the early game, even against teams like SK Telecom and CJ. And Svenu has had a really tough schedule facing SK Telecom and CJ in the first 2 weeks. Now, they also lost 2-0 to Samsung, but Samsung's looking much better. So there's some upside, I think, to Anarchy. I would say the bottom teams are definitely stronger than the bottom teams were last season, where IM and Samsung were just getting wrecked week in and week out. So that's nice.
Do you have a sense?
Samsung is actually pretty good now, too, which is surprising.
They are? When you say pretty good, you're going to have to qualify that for me right there. Pretty good.
They are capable of using good strategies and executing a game plan. And their first game against the Coup Tigers, where they ran Bard and TF, was really cool. And they played it really well. So
if Samsung are pretty good, will they finish top 4 this season?
No. They'll probably finish like 6th or 7th.
Will they finish ahead of Coup Tigers this season?
Probably not.
Do you think Coup Tigers are a pretty good team?
They're okay.
You're killing me right now, Monty. You see what I just did there? You see the trap I led you into?
I pretty good.
You mean relative to how bad they should be? They're pretty good.
Yeah. Like compared to last season. But yes, I do
that seemed too easy there, Monty. That didn't even take much.
I know what you're doing. I know you're doing. They're all right. But I was impressed with the fact that they had developed enough to even put out a performance like we saw them play against the Coup Tigers and win a game, and win it in a very technical and like well-developed strategic way.
What do you actually think of Coup Tigers at the moment? Sounds like you're pretty down on them.
Yeah, they haven't adapted well to Cinderhulk. They're a team that seems to not be able to get any advantages out of a laning phase whatsoever, and they have to win through like side wave control in the late game. So that's a very risky way to win. They can come from behind very well, but they need to figure out their early game because it's kind of a mess at the moment.
Freeze, when last season when GE Tigers were in like God mode and they were winning all those games, they won like 20 out of the first 22 games they played. Now, since then, we had the IEM drop off where they did badly, then they got wrecked by SKT in the final, and now they're not exactly blazing the league up now. What do you actually think of Prey, this old school AD carry who was one of the main reasons they were dominating, it seemed, and now, what do you think of him at the moment? What do you think of him as a player?
Well, he used to be dominating when there was the Twitch meta, right? But nowadays, he plays like tries to play hyper carries and build his team around him when they just go like Juggernaut composition or whatever with AP top lane and try to go through the Cinderhulk meta, which is not very effective, you know, like you can't really have if you don't have a Kog'Maw in the Juggernaut, then you won't get through the tanks that quickly. And then, yeah, it just doesn't fit the meta right now. And Prey, I'm not really convinced by him playing really well like he used to play when he was the Twitch guy, I think, back in the day. So that was the moment where I was really surprised by his overall knowledge of the game and how he can carry those games on Twitch. But right now I never see him carry the games like ever, you know, like
he did a lot last season. Actually, in the spring he was carrying really hard a lot of the time.
That was on
Corki,
Ezreal, Corki. Was it Ezreal? Yeah, Kog'Maw, yeah.
A lot of Corki. But yeah, he was great.
So what do you think happened to him, Monte?
I think it's just the team. Like right now,
the team has not adapted well to the Cinderhulk meta. They don't play particularly good compositions. Kuro isn't strong enough in lane, I don't think. Kuro and Lee, who is now called Hojin, I think it's smart of them to get Wisdom as a backup player and start experimenting with that because those are their two weakest positions. But Prey's positioning has been off as well, and they haven't adapted from their kiting compositions where they were using a lot of disengage, just like Jennair did, into a more engage-heavy comp.
So okay, well in theory though, they still have two players who were supposed to be very good players at their position, Prey and Smeb. These are supposed to be beast players. How are they actually performing individually?
Well, Smeb is still doing okay. And Prey, his positioning has been off in some of these compositions, which led him to get picked off a little bit in the Samsung game, although Samsung also did play that very well. When they tried to play with Sivir with the Lulu mid, he was not creating picks. He was trying to play it like you would a Juggernaut, and that just doesn't work with Sivir. So he's having some issues understanding where his positioning should be in certain compositions right now.
Freeze.
For the AD carry, like what I didn't mention so far is right now for AD carries, it's more of a how your team is doing, then you will be looked at. You know, like if your team is doing well and you have those team fights where you can actually influence them, then you will be looked upon like a good AD carry or really good that can influence the team fight. But if you don't have those team fights, if you either play versus compositions that wreck you, you know, like poke compositions or whatsoever, when you lose the early game, then you will be non-factor in those games, and everyone will like point finger at you and they will say, oh, you don't perform like you used to perform, you know. But it's really hard to compare because the meta completely changed and you have to play different champions as well, and it's all about adapting. So I think Prey, if Prey adapts well and stops playing like immobile champions, then he will do well again, because on those immobile champions you need perfect position, and if you don't get the perfect position, you're pretty much you will die in the team fight. While on the mobile champions, even if you have slightly off the positioning, you can still dash to get perfect position, and then you can influence the team fight a lot. So I think it's more of the picks as well, I would say.
Who is, like, if you watched Korea, who is the best Korean AD carry, do you think?
That's a hard question.
In the Korean region, not counting like Deft and those guys. I mean, like we've got OQ on Najin, Pilot,
I like
Engineer. Who do you like? Bang, Space.
I don't like. I like certain AD carries for certain champions. For example,
okay, give us which ones will go with which then.
Well, I liked Bang for Urgot. I was like watching his Urgot play, but he stopped playing it.
Who in God's name likes to watch AD carry Urgot? What the fuck's wrong with you? Is that like your fetish or some shit? The fuck is wrong with you? It's terrible.
Usually when you want to learn a champion you never played before, you need some guidance, and you basically copy runes and sort of a playstyle.
So that's why you're playing Urgot now?
Yep. Pretty much. But you copy the playstyle a bit and then you make it yourself, like you modify the playstyle. And that's why I was watching Death, because he had like a lot of success with the Urgot, in my opinion. So that's why I liked Death.
What was he doing right?
Bang, sorry. Well, he wasn't dying, that's the main reason on Urgot. Like most of the Urgot players think that they're tanky and they can tank whatsoever and they never die, but you still have to think of yourself as an AD carry. You need good position on Urgot. And when I see all those Urgot players, they don't care about position, and that's a big flaw. Because if you get good position, you get good the ultimate of Urgot, and then if you get good E on the teamfight, you can win the teamfight alone. Like for example, if you hit an enemy AD carry or AP carry with the E, and then you proc the passive, that reduces all the damage income from the guy, then you influence the teamfight a lot. And you can be in the cool tank club, like you're the part of the tank club. So
that's why Freeze likes
that's why you
because
play
he gets to be a tank. It's like the fucking Genja joke I made earlier.
That's all right. Have you considered being friends with Woong and just starting to build warlogs on all your AD carries and then arcane shifting into the enemy team? Do you wish you could rewind time and be on CJ Frost?
No.
Really? You don't?
Well,
really? You don't want to play with Mad Life and Shy? Okay,
I would
buddy.
have to speak Korean. That's for sure.
True. He's had hard enough time with English, Monty. Come on, give him a chance.
And I really don't know how is it in the Korean environment and the team base. Like what are the team environments like, and what do they have to do and stuff. It's really hard to tell if I would want to play in a team, because I need to know how it is in the team. But sure, like if Madlife and whoever would speak English, then I would love to play with them. But
plus, here's the thing, Monty.
I would just do not understand.
If Freeze was over there's no way he could maintain that level, because the sheer level of physical exhaustion he'd be under from all the female fans who'd be all over him in Korea. Like you'd see him in the studio, Monty. He'd look like somebody who'd just run a marathon. He'd be like drained. He'd need like electrolytes placed back in his body. Like, In fact, that's probably one of the reasons why Freeze thinks Rekkles is overrated, because they're like, oh, he's like, he's so good looking, and you're like, yeah, I am as well, but I'm also a good player. So this is the part of the show, Monty, where I awkwardly tell guests that they're really good looking and then just sit there waiting for them to respond. Like,
no comment. Nothing to say.
Anyway, okay. So which other ones go with which champions? So we have Bang goes with Urgot.
Yeah.
Bang, I always think personally the player I always associate with Urgot is Pinoy. I think that he played him in a very special manner, and I'll never forget that the way he played it. That'll be my lasting memory of Pinoy. Is Urgot.
Well, remember when he kept getting caught, right?
It was great, wasn't it? Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it was a great game. He single-handedly allowed Unicorns of Love to move on and ruin the entire EU LCS playoffs. So, cheers, mate. Cheers. You deserve to be banished to NA. You're like fucking Jorah Mormont. Get out and don't ever come back. You have betrayed us, and now only fighting amongst the slave pits will allow you to win our attention again, Pinoy. Now get to NA Challenger. Okay.
Yeah.
So who else goes with who?
Then obviously Arrow. I used to watch that guy when he was playing Draven, saying how bad he is compared to me, obviously, because I'm the best Draven in the world. But,
I know you think that.
You have to think that. If you're a Draven player, you have to believe that you're the best. Otherwise,
the reason, Freeze, why the best players in the world don't play Draven? Because if you're like a god tier AD carry, like Deft, and your whole aim is to like put out a lot of damage, Okay, Draven's great at that. But here's the key thing, Freeze. Don't get caught in a team fight. It's kind of difficult to not get caught in a team fight when the enemy can literally see where you're going to have to move to right now after this and just fire a skill shot there. Like, that makes it harder. I'll admit the degree of difficulty is pretty good, but it's kind of hard to do that, you know?
Well, it's double-edged sword, you know. You can bait as well with it. You don't need to pick up the axe. You can have 3 axes in the air. You always have the next queue that is coming up as well. Since like it's really low cooldown, so
mind games.
Yep, mind games. You can play around it pretty easily, and yeah, I don't know. Like all the players I talk to, they say that Draven is not a good champion, and that it always backfires. But then every time I play them, they just ban it. So I don't really know what they.
See, your mistake is that you're admitting that you think it's really good. What you should do is beat them with it, and then be like, "No, listen, I agree. Draven is a really bad champ. I guess I'm just that good, guys. Like I'm so good that I even use like non-match. I just wreck everyone. Like, you know, it's not your fault. You guys did the best you could do, but I'm Freeze. What can I tell you? You know."
Yeah. Well,
who else then? Pick some other ones.
Well. They're not really special since everyone plays Sivir right now. They just like if Kalista is open, insta pick Kalista, but it's permaban. So then what comes next is the Sivir. Urgot is not played as it was before anymore. The people realize how to play against it, and then there's like the tier 280 carries like Lucian that is played a bit as well, but. Nothing that then Sivir is worth playing in, or at least looks like worth playing in.
Do you like Sivir? Do you like all these teams playing Sivir? I mean, Uzi plays Sivir now. Your hero.
I hate Sivir.
No, you love Sivir. Sivir helps your team win. You love it.
Yeah, but that's the thing, Monty. It helps your team. So you have to have a team to be able to help. You see, that's where it fails. There, you know.
You look good. You have big farm on Sivir. That's the props. But yeah, I don't really like to be a skull crap, you know. There was a saying in EU when Fnatic was playing with Steelback, and Steelback was always playing Sivir. So people started to call him skull crap because he was giving movement speed and vision.
Fucking hilarious.
So and then every time everyone plays Sivir in the EU, people call him a skull crap. Because you give movement speed.
You got your scrying orb and your ult. You good?
Yep. Yeah. You're the living ward running around. And then when someone yells, ult, then you give him movement speed and your tanks destroy the enemy. So yeah. But
so what you're telling is, you said before about Forgiven. Forgiven will never play Sivir, right?
Yeah.
Else he'll have to kill himself or be killed by someone else.
Exactly.
Like, I imagine Forgiven actually believes that. Most people, Monty, when they say, like, oh, kill me if I ever do that, they mean it, like, as a joke, you know. It's obviously hyperbole. Forgiven literally means if he ever plays Sivir, like, he will then go before the council, and one of them will, like, ceremonially chop his head off with a samurai sword for dishonoring the code of Forgiven, you know, how you meant to play. He really means it. He's not joking, bro.
Yeah. He was even, like, in the screens was like, Gambit's color crap. Calling himself. I should rename to Gambit's Calicrab. He went the dark path, joined the Calicrab club.
So Monty, you are fully riding the SKT train again, right? They're like the best team, and it's obvious, and they're by far the best.
Yeah, looking pretty good so far.
Who's gonna be the ones to derail that train?
I think CJ and KT have a shot to win a best of 3 against them. I think the top 3 are pretty close right now.
You think KT is top 3?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, are they third?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure everybody would say that.
Yeah, pretty sure as well. I would say as well.
I think that's like.
I'm not sure about the rank 1 SK Telecom and CJ Entus. I would maybe put Entus up there, like, you know, like together and see what we will see, good. And then I will make up my mind if CJ shows the performance they had so far. Then I would even put them rank 1.
I think though that pretty much everybody agrees that there's like it's SKT, CJ, KT, and then there's a bit of a gap beyond that. It's pretty clear that those are the top 3 teams for the moment.
Yep.
Has all hope for Najin died?
Whatever. Fuck Najin. I'm so tired of their bullshit. Like, why can you be so good on paper and just keep sucking? Why do you lose to Anarchy and then beat the Coup Tigers? Like, stop it. Stop doing that.
I can't even believe what I'm hearing. It's like the same cycles repeat with Monte. Like, this is the sort of shit he'd been saying last season about KT. Like, oh, they suck and they lose all the. Then when they start picking it up, he's like, well, I kind of like the cut of this KT team's jib. I'm kind of liking him now.
KT's been performing really well for the last 2 or 3 months, though. They ended the season very strong in spring. So.
And then they didn't play the playoffs, so they had perfect performance there. Didn't have a chance to let themselves down.
Flawless.
Like, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying here. You're right. For the last sort of 9 weeks.
The CJ-KT match from last week was super good. It was a really good best of 3. And they stomped CJ in game 1, and then they got stomped in game 2, and then game 3 was extremely close.
So if you were the kind of person who did some kind of a rundown of the best games of the week, you know, if you still had the heart and dedication and drive to do that, would you have listed that in such a list of games?
I perhaps would have put it as the best match from this past week because China sucked a dog this past week.
But I mean, you would have, because obviously you don't really do that, right? OGN plus. No, you don't do that anymore, Monty?
No,
you don't give people the clap anymore.
I do. Give people the clap all the time.
Okay. So that would be your best game then, yeah?
It would be. I don't even know.
Contender for game of the season?
Maybe. We'll see. It was good. It was a good series. It'll probably be like top 5 in terms of best of 3s this season, I would think.
So, Genja. Tell me about Genja, Monty. You're allowed to like them again, remember? You're allowed to gradually open your heart again. They hurt you, but you're allowed to start to learn to love again, Monty.
I think their compositions against KT were terrible.
What should they do better?
Pick good champions.
Such as? Could I have some of them? Who are good champions right now?
Could you have some good champions?
Yeah.
No, I just didn't like their Varus Vayne pick. Like, what the fuck? Who picks Varus with Vayne? That's just terrible. How do you even clean up off a Varus poke with that?
How do you even siege?
Yeah, exactly. It's fucking horrible.
What do you think of all these Varus picks we're seeing mid now in the different regions?
I think it's overused, and I think it's dangerous.
It's overrated as well. It's not that good.
It is good in a very particular like timing window, right? But beyond that, it's okay, here's the thing about Varus. People love it because when it works super well. If you hit that timing, you look like a fucking god, like SK Telecom did, even though their comp was terrible. Right? Up against Najin.
Yeah.
Last week, probably should not have been able to win with that composition. Najin misplayed it. Game over. But
it was Faker, to be fair, dude.
It was Faker. And Faker also did more damage with Varus than the entire team of Najin combined. Because Faker hits every skill shot. So if you have Faker, then the Varus, the quality of Varus goes up significantly. But Jin Air against KT, they picked Varus and Vayne together. Their composition was Alistar, Rek'Sai, Rumble, Vayne, Varus. That is shit.
You have a little bit of everything.
That's just terrible. And then Jin Air picked Yasuo into Cassiopeia mid in game 2. So I don't know what the fuck is going on with Jin Air and their compositions right now, but they're really bad.
Yeah, and I don't know, like about the Varus pick, I just think that it's the worst version of Kog'Maw. You know, like okay, it's different because it has a strong early game, but it is easily punishable by good teams. It is immobile. I
keep saying that.
It's really hard to hit the power spike with it. It's like you have a small window of actually taking towers, and if you don't in that small window take towers and get advantage, you will stop doing damage completely.
Yep. And totally agree with you.
So then doesn't that make POA, doesn't that make Power of Evil a god then, Free, since he plays Kog'Maw and Varus? He must be a god,
I mean,
right?
he brought those champions to the professional league, right? So I don't know. He is special. Whole unicorns are special. It's a team of special.
I think they're very special. You know, they're the sort of team. Some of them are so special they might even need a special carer to look after them. You know, because their ideas are kind of wild, a bit messy in some ways. You know, so they need someone to help them put their shirt on. You know, get them a nice meal in them. They need some cartoons to watch to relax after the game. You know. Monte, I tell you what I'd love to see, a reality TV show that follows Unicorns of Love and shows their preparation, the team meetings they have, the strategy. I'd love to just even see some photographs of a whiteboard with the strategy of what part of Unicorn of Love is going to do in a game, and then see how that matches up to what actually happens in that game, and whether they wrote anything on that board.
They actually just have a roulette wheel that has 124 different spaces for every single champion, and they just toss the old ball in there during picks and bans. It's like, okay, our jungle pick's coming up, guys. Throwing the ball, whirls around in a circle, lands on Gnar. You're like, well, can't we just play him top lane? Nope, landed in the jungle spot. Sorry, Kikis.
Freeze. Do teams behind closed doors make fun of Unicorns of Love? Aren't they the team where it's like it shouldn't work what they're doing?
It shouldn't work.
Well, of course it shouldn't work. What the hell? Like, you just see it and you're like, what the fuck are they playing? And how does that work? You know, like, you have no idea, but somehow they make it work. And that's the thing I don't understand. And they finished second.
That's the magic.
And they finished second with it. Yeah. Like, they were second in the EU with every week playing something random that they never played before. Like, I don't know. I don't really know. Like how
basically, Unicorns of Love. They are like, our reaction to them is like the famous song by the Insane Clown Posse, where the lyrics magnets. How do they work? Like that's like how I feel about Unicorns of Love. So me and Monte can be the Insane Clown Posse again. Then
magnets. How do they work?
How do they work?
I don't want to talk
jungle
to
picks.
a scientist.
How do they work? Oh. Is there anyone else in Korea worth talking about, Monte?
I'm excited tonight. This show is going to come out afterwards, but tonight is SKT versus the Ku Tigers, so that should be an interesting series to see if the Ku Tigers can hold it together against the top team now after losing to Najin.
Let me ask you a weird question, Monte. A point in history that I've always noted is that it's extremely rare that you have a world-class team, a team potentially that can be the best in the world, that doesn't have a good mid laner. So it's actually amazing. GE would have been one of the outliers there, that they managed to maintain so much dominance over Korea. Do you think that they can... Is there a way to overcome that in the modern world? Is that still a rule that holds true?
I was trying to go through right now and think about all the other teams.
I mean, EDG, LGD...
Yeah. Well,
IG, these all have very good mid laners.
Well,
wait. Yeah, LGD. Yeah.
CJ, SK Telecom.
Yep.
TSM.
KT now, actually. I mean, you may shit on Nagne, but Nagne's stats are absolutely incredible this season. And his champion pool is pretty large. I'm not going to say he's like one of the most elite mid laners in the world, but he's certainly better than average.
So Nagne's now acquired like GBM status for you.
Yeah, better than average. Kuro is average to below average, though, is the problem for the Tigers.
Why do you think in Korea that they don't just... I mean, I ask this about LPL all the time, but the transfers in Korea always puzzle me. Like, why do these teams like CJ in certain positions or Ku Tigers, why don't they upgrade those obviously weak positions, do you think?
They've been trying to. I mean, that's why I think the Ku Tigers got Wisdom to see if they could have a different jungler and develop in that aspect as well. Maybe they haven't found a mid laner that they want to bring on as a substitute player and start easing him into playtime yet. I don't really know.
Like, it kills me that Ku don't have a good mid laner, while Najin sits on Tank and Goong.
By the way, Tank hasn't been great, but Tank right now surprisingly is top 5 in Korean solo queue, which hasn't happened before. So he's been practicing a lot recently and been getting significantly better. So I hope we get to see some more of him. Goong is just inconsistent, has a small champion pool. I would, for the long term, I'd rather bet on Tank than I would on Goong.
Freeze. Forgiven said, I think in his AMA or something like that, he made a comment where he said that him and Edward at IEM played against Prey and Gorilla in solo queue, and they didn't know at the time, but they saw these accounts and they looked behind them in the practice area and they wrecked them. They completely dumpstered them. What do you think?
Well, I think it's true, since Korean bot lanes are not used to that kind of aggression Forgiven can bring. And we saw it on the, was it IEM, right? Yeah. When they are like banning 2 AD carries and Forgiven was still winning the laning phase. And that was...
No, he didn't. They lane swapped against them. They didn't really have a 2v2 at all.
Oh,
they gave Maokai blue buff and then
he had the pressure. Yeah,
they totally avoided that entire situation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they lane swap again, but then when he lane swap back, he didn't win the lane, but he had the pressure. So, well, for Forgiven, I guess that was enough.
What the fuck? He was playing Caitlyn. Of course, he had the pressure.
Yeah, obviously, but you know that for him, that's enough when he gets 2 bans on himself. So, well, yeah, but I would say that Prey and or more of the of Koreans bot laners, I would say they're passive and they play as a team. Obviously, if there's some action, they rotate instantly and they do nothing to get yourself ahead. They do everything to get the team ahead. While in EU, maybe in NA as well, but in EU you do like, you first push out your wave and then you rotate, you know, stuff like that. You basically try to get yourself ahead all the time at every single point of the game. So, and that can surprise the international teams, since then you will have an AD carry that's running on 60 or 300 gold per minute, and then you have a Forgiven who has 500 gold per minute because he gets everything. And when he's aggressive in the lanings as well, then it's really hard to play against him. I remember when I played first time Forgiven, I got completely stomped, you know. I didn't know what to do. But the more you play against Forgiven, the way easier it gets. So obviously Forgiven having a big props in the international events for this one, I would say.
See, it sounds like Forgiven, when Korean AD carries play the game, they're trying to complete the game, okay? They're trying to get to the end of the quest and just win the game by any means necessary. Forgiven plays the game, but because he knows he can't complete the game with his current situation, he's just trying to unlock all the mini quests. Like, he's like, hey, but in that game I got two bans drawn against me. I had like 78% lane pressure.
He's trying to collect all the achievements is what he's doing.
He's unlocking achievements, Monte.
He has to unlock the achievements, because even if he can't actually finish the game itself, at least he got the I beat Prey and Lane achievement.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he was like bragging about it so much. When he came back, it was like, oh my god, those best Korean teams or Asian teams, they banned 280s and I still clapped the bot lane, you know. That was all he was talking about. So yeah, there you go. You have a personality of Forgiven. Pretty much.
Monte, is Easy Hoon going to continue to see play all season long?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, as long as I shouldn't say that for sure. As long as his champions remain meta viable, sure.
So last season, when Prey was going crazy, you could have said Prey was a contender to Faker for best player in the region. Who, aside from Faker, is the best in the region? Who's his next best contender, do you think? Just performance-wise right now.
Pilot's been playing really well, surprisingly.
I agree.
Pilot is super good.
Yeah. He surprised me as well, I agree. He played 3 champions so far, and he played all of them really well. And
he played Vayne and Urgot, which really aren't... Last season, he wouldn't have played those champions, so he's starting to really develop as an AD carry. And his Vayne play was really good. Which I never thought he would be a Vayne player, because he was always more on the Corki and the Ezreal and the casting AD carry side, and he was good at that. But that was really good. So Pilot is a very interesting player right now, actually.
So I asked you about this with the Ku Tigers example, Monte, but in terms of Najin, explain this to me. So if I asked you in isolation, you'd probably agree that Duke and OQ are like contenders for best player at their role in Korea. Sure. So again, how can you have 2 players who are super good and yet the team as a whole's kind of crap? What do you think they do wrong on Najin?
They must have some serious problems with their comms or something. Like their shot calling must be absolutely god awful in order to achieve what they have achieved. So they may not just have a leader within the game in order to make those shot calls. Their pick and ban gets kind of crap sometimes too. They're limited a lot by Goong's mid lane picks. I'm going to go with their shot calling is just terrible, which is evident from the outside, but I think there must be some serious problems on that within the team.
How highly do you actually rate OQ?
OQ just does stupid shit in the late game. That's the problem with rating OQ, is that his mechanics are good, his laning is excellent, but he has a tendency to play overly aggressive and die in the late game. So
I know how you hate those AD carries, Monte. They're hard to live with.
They are hard to live with. So I guess how I feel about OQ is I want him to be better than he is.
Again, he's perfectly fitting that stereotype, you know. R.I.P. light a candle. Anyway, so who's going to be the shock then of the bottom 4 teams? Who's the one who's going to surprise us all at the end of the season? Make your prediction now, Prophet Monte.
Samsung.
Samsung.
They're showing a lot of innovative strategies right now, and they've upgraded players at a couple positions, and they're looking a lot more together. And I think by the end of the season, they'll actually be pretty decent.
What do you think, Freeze? Do you think any teams can join that top group? Any crap
as
teams?
Monte said, Samsung, I didn't see their games, but I heard from him that they brought a interesting strategy with board as well. So
you gotta check it out now.
I don't really believe in Najin, Anarchy, or Spanu. You know, don't really see them winning games at all, to be honest. So I would really give it to Samsung as well.
Who are you? Anarchy beat Najin. Fuck you.
Like, if I had to choose from the lesser evil, as you say, then I would say Samsung can surprise as well.
Monty, what is he talking about? Bard. Who the fuck plays Bard?
Well, not Jin Air, because it's been banned against Sweet every single game so far this season, which is makes me just.
A ban.
I would want to see that. I actually really want to see it. Bard's really good. He's really strong.
At what?
And at what?
Yeah.
He's great at pick composition. He's not great at laning. Let's be real. But
if you have lane bullies like Ashe or Kalista, then he's really good with those.
So,
but if you don't, then
Bard allows you more mobility on the map. He has a huge range on his ultimate that can be absolutely game-changing, that has a lot of utility and can be used in very creative ways. He's great with pick compositions because Magical Journey. So one of the best things in the early game that you can do with Bard is if you have a good pick comp, then as soon as you're trying to fight Dragon, if you have good wards, he can enable you to create picks like almost no other champion, because you just go through a wall and kill them with your entire team. It's really easy. So that's a great way to secure objectives early, and you can take towers with him easily too by just quickly moving from turret to turret faster than your opponent can respond. He's really good.
You can dive easily as well when you ult the tower.
Yep.
And it's really fun.
So which Western teams should play Bard, Monty?
Everyone.
All of them. Literally everybody needs to play this champion.
So in Monty's world, every single comp in every game should just be like the first to get Sivir and Bard wins the game.
I know, I love it. It's body style League of Legends right there.
Yep. Press R to victory.
Do you know which champion Samsung had?
Sivir, Bard.
Yeah. and Rek'Sai. They had 3 globals. We had Teleport on their Gnar, Rek'Sai, and Twisted Fate with Bard. It was beautiful. It's a great pick comp.
Party bot lane in the EU, would say.
You know something that I like, Monty? Now that SKT's on top again, so Marin's playing and he's kind of like in position now. Now that Najin's doing so badly, so Duke's in Elo hell. Now that Smeb is kind of like his team's fallen to shit, it's now opened the way. The one thing I have left, Monty, maybe now I can at least argue that like Flame's the best Gnar player in the world. It's all I've got left, Monty. It's all I've got left. It's all I've got. I've searched for a way, and I found a way finally. And I'll just say the Nah part really quietly. Like, he's the best player in the world. The best player in the world. Yeah, you heard me, yeah. Anyway. Right. Well, let's do LPL last. Freeze, do you even watch LPL?
We're not going to do LPL, dude. LPL was so... Here's all I want to say about LPL.
Yeah.
QG is a fun... No, QG is a fun team to watch. I like watching QG. QG versus IG this last week was actually a cool series. You should go back and check that one out. Every other series this last week, the ones that were supposed to be fucking good on paper had, like, Dandy playing top lane. LPL this past week was fucking garbage. Because all of these substitutions were being made in the league, and Carey was sick, so even the last game, which was supposed to be good on paper, ended up being absolute shit because Dandy was playing top.
So just to remind you, everyone who thinks that this show is biased in favour of Asians, Monte just did that huge rant there after he devoted like half the show to fucking NALCS. And on that note, we end the show.